that we're live, should we remind the public that Janet is virtual?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we'll return from closed door meeting. Information received, no action taken.
No action taken, but we do have one item to go back
After the meeting, we'll have closed session after the meeting. Okay. Pledge of Allegiance. Tracy, would you lead us tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, one nation, under God, indivisible.
The next item is adoption of agenda. Do I hear a motion to?
Moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. We'll have roll call, and tonight we have a councilman on Zoom, so we'll have to be doing verbal roll calls.
With that, Councilmember Johnstone,
Yes.
Councilmember Riggs,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Goodson,
Yes.
Councilmember Weber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith,
Yes.
and Mayor Pittman.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All
And
right.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just put this on the record,
Please, go ahead.
that way we've got it on video and on the recording. There was an item that was added to the agenda related to AB 2447, related to the emergency measure 2449, is that what it is? Yeah, 2449, that allows council members to attend if they are ill, or if they have some other legitimate reason as enumerated in the statute. Tonight, Councilmember Goodson is ill. She did request that the council consider adding an agenda item to approve her remote attendance tonight. We did that before closed session. The vote was unanimous to add the item for consideration, and it was also unanimous to allow her to attend remotely. That's why we have the need for
Verbal roll call.
for verbal roll call for every item, because we've got someone who's on the phone. So that way you all know why we're doing that procedure. So
Which also allows someone that is on the Zoom to also ask a question from Zoom. We have to accept
that's
that.
correct. If we do have anybody online that wants to ask questions, they do have that right to do that. So far, my understanding is we don't.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that information. And Councilman Goodson, we hope you get well.
Thank you.
Next item, presentations. Presentation by Emily Swearingen and Jennifer Skinner on the national fentanyl crisis. Welcome, ladies.
Hello. Unit.
Excuse me, just a minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that the tens of people watching online can hear you right here. Either use that microphone there or this
Sorry.
one here.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm
you.
usually pretty loud without a microphone, so I always forget. But we work for behavioral health, and we work in the prevention unit. And I just want to share really quickly, a lot of times when people think of behavioral health, they tend to think of treatment and crisis services. And we do all of those things. We serve a lot of our community in those facets in the department, but that is not what Emily and I do. We do prevention, which if you look at behavioral health services on a spectrum, you have your crisis and your treatment services kind of on the back end. When people are like, oh my gosh, I have so much stuff going on that I really need intensive level services. We work at the beginning, where we're really trying to give people every opportunity to be their very best self, in the hopes that they're not going to need to utilize more intensive services later on in life, or that if they do, they use them for a shorter period of time, shorter duration, those kinds of things. We serve a lot of youth. We have programs all across the county. We serve a lot of young people, a lot of at-risk families, and our county in general. You want to add anything, Em?
No, I think just locally, you guys might know prevention as the Oroville Life Spot Youth Center, which is right down the road. So that's one of our youth center programs.
So we're going to start our presentation this evening with a quick video and testimonial before we start talking a little bit more about fentanyl itself and some of the issues that we're seeing both locally and at a national level.
It's like a bad hair day.
Oh, it didn't do it. It doesn't like it. Hang on just a second.
When he was about 12 or 13, marijuana initially got in with the wrong crowd.
Sorry, you guys. Just gonna do it again. Quentin was his own person.
Started when he was about 12 or 13 years old with
There you go.
Quentin was his own person, a strong leader and a strong personality. People always followed him. Started when he was about 12 or 13 years old with marijuana initially. Got in with the wrong crowd and started to go down the wrong path in middle school. I can't exactly pinpoint the time when it escalated from just marijuana to pills. And he was convinced that he needed Xanax in order to function and that there wasn't a problem with it. I'll never forget, he came home and he had smoked pot and taken Xanax. To see your kid like that, that was the first time when I really saw him just having a hard time keeping his eyes open and having a hard time having conversation with me. And I just kind of got a handle on how serious it was. Yeah, you whipped it behind. It's right by the ball right there.
Hey kids, this is your Uncle Quentin.
Quentin didn't see himself as an addict.
Typical day. Come on.
He didn't realize the implications of what he did. Almost all Xanax that you're buying off market or on the streets is laced with fentanyl.
The national opioid epidemic.
Fentanyl is 50 times stronger than heroin.
Counterfeits laced with fentanyl instead of the real ingredient.
It looks the same as a regular pill. And see, that's the danger because you don't know what you're getting.
And he called me up and said, "Mom, I can't do life like this anymore. I just want to be healthy and I just want to be in Florida with you and Piper." He gave his notice at work, started to prepare to come down to Florida. So his family gave him a going away party 4th of July weekend, and they were all saying their goodbyes. And I spoke to him that day, and he was debating whether or not to go out with a friend after, and I encouraged him to just stay. So the next day, Sunday, got up, went to church, had a regular day. Around 6 p.m. at night, his best friend back in Minnesota texted me and asked if I had talked to Quentin that day. And I said, no, I just spoke to him yesterday. You know, he was at his grandma's, and I said, why? What's going on? He said that he saw a social media post. Somebody had posted something that didn't make sense to him, and he hadn't heard from Quentin, so he just was trying to find him. And I asked him what was the social media post, and he sent me a picture. It was Quentin's picture, and somebody had posted, "Gone too soon, rest in peace." And I remember, like, the air just leaving my lungs. Like in that moment, I couldn't breathe. The other people in the apartment came and they tried to resuscitate him and they called an ambulance, and by the time they got there, like, he was already gone. So, yeah, that was July 8th. That was Sunday, July 8th. He had been gone the whole day, and I didn't know about it until later that night. I pray that you would learn from his one mistake and let it be the thing that shapes your decision and shapes your lives. Whenever someone wants to hand you a pill, understand that that could be the last thing that you do, you know? If you're walking through a season of adversity right now, if you're facing a challenge that seems overwhelming, or if you've lost someone that you love, or if someone is in the middle of the throes of addiction and it feels like you don't know up from down, I'm here to tell you that there is hope. There is a place of freedom and peace and joy, that you don't have to surrender those things to whatever is going on in your life. And there's a community of people that are going after that as well. And so I want to invite you to join us at Q's Army and become a part of his army and go on to do amazing things in your life. Anything that people do good in Q's Army here is credited to him up in heaven. And so I'm on a mission to make the impact as far-reaching as possible. So I want to invite you to join us to make a difference in his name and on his behalf. Start the conversation, because I think for a lot of us, we can make assumptions about what people who are struggling with an addiction look like. And a lot of times it's not the assumption that it's a young person. And I guarantee you that that mom, it is, I'm like, thank you. And oftentimes we don't necessarily make an assumption that it's a young person. And if there's one thing that we know to be true about opiates and fentanyl in particular, is that it does not discriminate. It does not discriminate by age, by gender, by race, ethnicity, by socioeconomic status. It does not discriminate. And so I'm going to start the rest of our presentation. Slideshow. Play. There we go. So what are opioids? And for those of you who did not know this, they actually come from a poppy. That's how they start, is from a flower. So when you hear people say, and actually as a side note, I teach a class called Drugs in Our Society at Chico State, and one of my favorite things that students like to say is, oh, but you know, these things are natural. And I'm like, oh, but yeah, guess what? Coke also started as a plant. Heroin started as a plant. All of these other things that can be equally dangerous also started as a plant. So common examples of opioids. The thing about this drug group is that it actually spans all three typical drug classifications that we would have. It is prescription medication in the forms of morphine, codeine, Vicodin, oxy, even fentanyl is used as a prescription medication. It also is used as over-the-counter medications. If anybody took Robitussin, OTC, as a kid, the DM is dextromorphin cough syrup, so it is an OTC medication, and then heroin, and then also illicit fentanyl as well. So there are lots and lots of opiates. Fentanyl is a highly potent, what we call semi-synthetic opiate. There are some that can be directly derived from the poppy and other that are lab generated, and fentanyl is one that is lab generated, and it is significantly more potent than morphine and then heroin. We like to use this demonstration. If you look at what we consider a lethal dose of these substances,
That is one for fentanyl. And if you've ever seen the tip of a pencil, and people have talked about first responders going on a call and suiting up when there's a suspected fentanyl overdose, that's because that small of an amount, a grain or two salt size on the tip of a pencil, can cause an overdose, a fatal overdose. Just to give you guys an idea, I'm going to move this little box so you can see that better. Opioids are the leading cause of fatal drug overdose in the United States. At the end of 2022, there were a total of 109,000 overdose deaths in the United States, and about 75% of those were related to some kind of opioid, whether it was fentanyl, whether it was morphine, whether it was heroin, whatever it was. That is all of the opioid deaths in various classifications combined. And that number has actually more than doubled, almost tripled in the last 10 years. Our total number of drug overdose deaths in the United States in 2015 was about 45,000. So the fact that we have gone up that much, and then that so many of them are contributed to opioids, this is where we're at, where we're like, it's an epidemic. It is a national crisis. Click. Thank you. We have a couple of phases, if you have lived through various drug trends. You know that cocaine had a heyday in the 90s, and then it kind of went back out, and now it's coming back. And heroin kind of also had a heyday in the 90s, and then went out a little bit, and we moved to prescription, and now we've moved on to fentanyl. There are definitely waves that we can see, and now we're in this we're not the last wave, but what we would consider kind of the third wave of overdose deaths that are spiking, related very commonly to synthetic opiates, and specifically fentanyl. This is kind of a little bit of a snapshot of synthetic opioid deaths that happened during the pandemic, and you can see as we were already on a steady incline, there was a significant spike during the COVID-19 pandemic and post. And then again, this is another kind of a better graphical example of the three different waves. Just to give you a little bit of some background, if you see that spike on the left where it's like the beginning of the roller coasters right before you drop, that is prescriptions. So we saw a lot of prescribing, which was one of the initial waves that kind of contributed to this pandemic. And then as prescribing decreased, we moved towards a heroin-based, and then as heroin, still very prominent, has declined a little bit, we're moving towards seeing a significant increase in the amount of fentanyl overdose deaths. Okay. This is a showcase of age groups, deaths by age, and you can, I know it's very tiny, but on the far side is the younger people. In the middle is people like myself, and on the far right-hand side is our older age groups, and you can see that the death has increased across all age categories, but there has been a significant increase, particularly amongst young adults, and we're looking at that like 15 to 39 age group where we're really seeing a spike in use and overdose deaths. This is a little bit of a throwback. Our former public health officer, Dr. Miller, worked really closely to collect a lot of local prescribing data. And in 2015, Butte County was one of the highest opioid prescribing counties in the state of California. Just to give you an idea, about 200 milligrams of morphine is what they consider a lethal dose, okay? And the national average was about 640. That means that the national average of what was actually being prescribed across the nation was enough to kill every single person in the United States 3 times, okay? That was the prescribing rate. We're not talking street opioids, we're talking prescriptions. And then, and again, this is 2015. I know these numbers have gone down, but I don't have the most current ones from Dr. Miller. This was when we were really starting to like be at the peak of where we were seeing a huge problem in Butte County. In Butte County, I said in the nation, there was enough to kill everybody in the United States 3 times over. In Butte County, it was enough to kill everybody in the county 9 times over. That was what was being prescribed here locally in our community, just to give you an idea. Things that we ask people to advocate for is because they are prescription medications. That is very commonly how we see them being used. And we say, please ask your provider. I mean, how many of you have ever had to have surgery? And they're like, here is some codeine, or here is a Vicodin, or whatever it is. And there's actually been study done, and if you take a 10-day regimen, there's about a 10% chance that you could become addicted to an opiate, versus if you take a 30-day regimen, if you've had a major surgery and you're going to be using them chronically, there's about a 30% chance that you could become addicted to an opioid that you have been prescribed. And those, again, are prescription opiates. So then we see people who transition off of prescriptions and you move to street opiates because they are no longer being prescribed that medication. And so if you are in with your practitioner and they're like, hey, I want to give you this, you say, hey, can I have like some 800 milligram Motrin? I'll just tell you, I mean, personal story, but like I took an 800 milligram after I had a 10-pound baby and I didn't need an opiate. So it was fine. Like it works really great. 800 milligram Motrin, you're feeling really good, and there is nothing addictive in that. So asking your doctor, can I cut this in half? Can I take it for a shorter duration of time than you maybe originally would recommend? You know, a lot of times you maybe only need it for the first 2 or 3 days to kind of get you through the hump. Other practices that we try to share is making sure people don't often realize, but opiates and opioids, sorry, I use those terms interchangeably, but they are a depressant, which means they tell your brain to take a real nice break, which also means your heart rate has dropped, your breathing has dropped, you are not as functional. So if you ever read the little pill bottle and it's like, do not drive or operate heavy machinery, do not drink alcohol while you're taking this medication. Well, booze is also a depressant. And when you take those two together, the chances of a fatal overdose are significantly higher than they would be if people were not mixing, okay? She made the point in the video, and I get this a lot from college students. They like to bring in pills and they're like, can you tell if this is real or not? And most people can't. This is, if you look on the left-hand side, okay, this is oxycodone. And the one on the left is real, and the one on the right is a fake. And I don't know about you, but the one on the left looks fake, and the one on the right looks legitimate, okay? So you're not gonna know. No matter who you think you are, you're not gonna know. And a lot of times you can just buy a pill press online on the dark web, and you pop those out and you sell them, and that's how people get what they think is something that looks just like their prescription medication. And oftentimes it's been mixed with fentanyl, and then there's an overdose. So do not ever take medication that has not been prescribed to you by your physician that you did not pick up at the pharmacy. Safe disposal, we always encourage safe disposal because now it's been found in communities that there are high enough trace amounts of opioids in water supply, landfill, things like that. Do not throw them away. That also helps to keep them out of other people's hands. If you're not throwing them away, please take them to a safe disposal site. We have a few listed here, and Oroville PD is your one that is local here that we know of. Click. Here are a few signs of an opioid overdose. Just really quickly, has anybody ever seen this happen or responded? Yeah, it's pretty scary. And my husband is a first responder, and so he, will talk about like the shout and shake or a sternum rub, if you know what that is. And if someone is overdosing, you are not going to wake them up with a sternal rub. And so unconscious. Oftentimes they'll be starting to lose circulation a little bit in some of their extremities, so like fingertips and lips can be blue. Really slowed respirations where they're like they're not enough. Slowed heart rate, all of those things. Pinpoint pupils. Do you want to add anything to that? Other things? Okay. Just roll in. And we love to talk about Narcan. Get after it, girl.
Yeah. I'm going to skip this slide because it's a whole nother presentation. Have you guys had the Narcan presentation yet? No? Okay. It's another one. I'll give you some information. So just to stay on track with time and allow for questions, these are some local resources for if you know anybody that needs treatment. Here in Butte County, the Department of Behavioral Health has, oh, this is the older one, has an outpatient SUD program on Bird Street. Folks can walk in, they can call, they have orientations and assessments. Also down the street on Montgomery, Behavioral Health has an outpatient perinatal program called Stepping Stones, which is for women that are pregnant, parenting, or working to reunify. These are all services for anyone that has Medi-Cal, and they will support mild, moderate, and severe substance use disorders. And part of that is opiate use disorder. So if somebody needed to get access to medication-assisted treatment, which most commonly would be Suboxone or Vivitrol here locally, unless they're going to Aegis in Chico, they have access to that, which is a great resource. Some other programs in the community, there's the Methadone Clinic, Aegis and Chico, which folks can access if they are struggling with an opioid use disorder. We also have Skyway House, which is a residential program in Chico. There's a multitude of services, and I would just encourage if you ever have questions to reach out to Butte County Behavioral Health and we can get you in the right direction. Oh, and then there's not another slide. And then I had a slide for you guys just to also talk about the North Valley Harm Reduction Coalition. That's another community organization that can come in and do a presentation and a Narcan training if the community was interested in that. They can also provide Narcan and fentanyl strips in the community if that's something that you guys wanted to have access to. Other community resources specific to the opioid crisis is Healthy Rural California. They've just launched a new program called Project COPE. It's the Community Overdose Prevention Effort. And so they're also going to be dedicated to that naltrexone distribution, which I think you guys may have seen here locally with the Operation Live On recently. So really trying to get going out into communities and making sure people have access to it. There's also the Butte Glen Opioid Safety Coalition, which is a collaborative work group, and they encourage community partners. So if it's something that anyone's interested in, you can connect with them. And then the California Department of Public Health is a really great online resource. If you want to watch trends, they actually have the California overdose surveillance dashboard, and you can go in and actually see live numbers for what's happening. There's 4 sections. There's emergency department visits, there's deaths, there's 2 others. Hospitalizations.
And one more.
And it's just specific to opioids in our community, and it breaks it down with age, demographics, and things like that. So it's a really great resource. There's so many online resources. Our own Butte Youth Now website, we have lots of education. We have a lot of the PSAs, local testimonies that we work to promote in the community with young people. And then we also have our Butte County Response website, which is dedicated to opioid education and resources.
So there are lots and lots and lots of resources for people who are really looking to get help and for people who maybe are really looking to get involved and figure out how they can help other people. All the things.
Questions, because we're going over.
You know, I appreciate this presentation because I attended one at the Southside Community Center a few months ago, and this is kind of a follow-up to that to bring it to the public's attention. And one of the things that put me in a little bit of a level of shock is the normal drug pusher that I knew in my age group, you'd see him on the street, there was a visual that now the drugs are available with this thing.
100%.
And that's the thing that was shocking to me, that they actually have a code on this cell phone system. And I don't know, can you speak to that at all? Or
emojis, that's a whole nother slideshow.
It's a whole nother slideshow.
We actually have an hour-long presentation that's been created just for high school students, and there's a section that talks about social media and online, and you can literally text in emojis, and if you don't know what they are, then a parent can look at the phone and just think that they're sending cartoons to friends, but they're actually working out what they're lining up.
And I appreciate that, because that's the one thing that was shocking to me. There is no words, it's just the emojis.
Yeah.
And they can order it, get it delivered on whatever they want, and then it comes either by partial post or, Amazon or whatever the case. It's a crazy world. So I think it's important that y'all be aware of that kind of thing. And Councilman Weber is in the queue.
Yeah, but I wanted to, did you?
I was just seeing if they had a card.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
We didn't bring any.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I can share information. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. And I think anybody that has eyes to see and ears to hear can perceive that we are in the middle of an epidemic. We've recently done some stuff here in Oroville that's been pretty cool. The Oroville Southside Community Improvement Association, spearheaded by Pastor Kevin Thompson, and actually also spearheaded by Councilperson Janet Goodson, have been doing a lot of work in this area with this project they call Operation Live On. And they reached out to the Oroville Community Development Coalition, which I happen to head up, and they asked us to partner with them on their most recent. So I wanted to give a little history on what we did there. There's 3 events that have happened so far. One was at the Southside Community Center. The other was at Martin Luther King Jr. Park. And most recently, this last 14th of this month, we held one at the Convention Center where every one of them had an educational element very similar to what you just showed us. One of them was actually more in depth. I think it might have been a girl from her name, I can't remember her name right now. Super sweet girl that did this excellent presentation that we watched where it was really identifying the emojis and all that, really fascinating. And it was about a 30-minute in-depth presentation about how children traffic in this and how they use burner numbers and all these different things. It was really, really interesting. So all 3 had educational elements as well as Narcan kit distribution. So I now have Narcan in all of my vehicles. I have 3 cars and they're in all of my vehicles. The OPD's been represented by Chief Lagrona, Detective Darnell at each of these events. Our District Attorney, Mike Ramsey, spoken at these as well and given us his own, what he deals with, with this. We've also had, like I pointed out, our mayor, vice mayor, council person, John Stone, and then, of course, Janet, councilperson Goodson was there, as well as recovery leaders like Pastor Spear from Jordan Crossing, and Jackson Recovery as well. In matter of fact, on the 14th, this last Thursday, we had a Narcan distribution. It was dominated by both Jordan Crossing and Daxit folks actually doing the distribution. So it was really cool to see them come out. A lot of them that had actually been Narcan had been used on them, and for them to come out of those circumstances and then start, distributing.
Yeah, and peer mentoring. There's a lot of research that peer treatment programming like that is really impactful.
Yep.
And so that's something that California's a push for California to actually increase our peer work force specific to SUD.
Well, it's really important, and the work you're doing is excellent. So I don't tell a lot of people this, but I was raised in an opiate-addicted home. My mom was addicted to opiate, but it was a different time then, and it was heroin that she was addicted to. And so I seen a lot of stuff as a child, but I'll tell you, the stuff that is happening now with this, what you guys just showed, it's nothing like I ever seen. Yeah. And so this is an epidemic. 100-something-thousand people dying a year. This is crazy. Me personally, I know of 6 families that have lost beautiful little young souls prematurely. Not specifically in Oroville, but I know of people. My own cousin killed himself over an opiate addiction. He couldn't kick the habit. He made $150,000 a year working for San Jose Fire, and he could not shake the habit, so he ended up hanging himself. And then last thing I want to say is I went on a ride along with Lieutenant Kiwi not that long ago, and we weren't even out of the parking lot yet, and the first call was a code 3 call for overdose of fentanyl behind the cornucopia. But when we got there, she was dying. I watched her take her last breaths, and Kiwi measured her pulse, did a couple really calm, cool collectively, and Officer Iverson was there as well. They administered Narcan, and it was about 1 minute and 25 seconds later, she started breathing again. So this is worthwhile for us to fight as a community together. We really need to wrap our arms around this. And folks like Jordan Crossing and Daxit and others that are really like, along with all the people that you're talking about, because it's like full wraparound services. How do we attack this thing? Because it is an epidemic, and we got to protect our youth. We got to protect our people.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on that too. Thanks for sharing. I know addiction touches so many of our lives, and we just don't even realize it or share about it openly with each other. The program director for the SUD program through behavioral health also wanted to share another thing that we're going to start hearing, a trend here in California is going to be xylazine.
Yep.
And it's not, when it's mixed in this format with opioids, Narcan isn't going to reverse it. And so since April, we've had 4 cases, which are clients in Butte County, that have been testing positive for xylazine. And so it's just continuing. As soon as we start getting ahead of something, the market shifts and something else is created. So we just are really grateful to be here and to share the message, and we can put presentations together that are specific to your organization in whatever time frame. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out.
The last thing I would like to say, Mr. Mayor, is I do want to commend Ron Belzer and the code enforcement team for all your work that you've done, because I know you do a fantastic job. I've seen your educational piece on this as well. Behavioral health, you guys, I've seen your stuff. OPD is really working hard to do some great stuff in our community to combat this. So, it's going to take everybody. It definitely takes a village on all this. So I just commend you all for your hard work. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you for having us.
Councilman Thompson is in the queue.
Thank you. Just a simple question as far as how often do you guys share this material with the high schools?
So we shared it with over a total of, I think, 1,047 students were able to have the full module. And so I'm not quite sure what the total number of classroom visitations were, but it was at every single high school and we have an educator, an elementary school teacher that's joining our team to work part-time just to do classroom presentations.
So say that again as far as like Oroville?
We had multiple presentations at Oroville High School and at LP, and I'm not sure if we were at the continuation schools. I would have to get the numbers, but I could send it to Brian so you know how many.
Is it in like the classrooms or in like a?
In the health classrooms, yeah.
Yeah, we go onto the campuses, and sometimes it's different. I think like an English teacher at Oroville High School really welcomed it, and so we just work to find out who is going to be multiple classes for the full day and just offer that presentation. So
great. Thank you for what you do.
Yeah. Vice Mayor Smith.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Some would say that this is a national security crisis because of nation states and their involvement in utilizing social media to affect algorithms, to tempt them to perhaps go down a path that they otherwise might not. And so I'm just kind of curious with that, what kind of work is being done to counter some of those measures with messaging to young people? What, in your scope, our line of work, given that, these are some pretty serious actors, whether it's south of the border, bringing drugs in, or China manufacturing this product to really poison our next generation.
Yeah.
So what kind of work and how, and nobody wants to think that they're easily manipulated, but we are. Yeah. It's like, today it's been reported that the mayor was found sober here at the city council. So, you can use manipulative language, and so the implication, of course, we can fill in the blank, right? And so our kids, their minds are being poisoned in this way, and then the next step is real poisoning.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious what you're doing with that.
It's in addition to the educational piece. They don't even realize that they can go into an Instagram shop or a Snapchat shop, and make those purchases. But part of that includes showing them. We're seeing a huge push currently related to vaping. That's where a lot of that messaging is happening. It's happening less. A lot of the media influences related to opiates come through music and movies and things like that. It's not necessarily an advertisement that they're looking at as it is with vaping. So we have some modules that we do with them related to how you can be savvy with the things that you are looking at. Sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say?
And then I think the prevention unit, if you ever go to our website and you look at our programs, we do it from a youth engagement model. So we have Club Live at junior highs. So we have where a staff goes on and they're working with officer students, and then a lunchtime chapter meeting, and we have curriculum that we're doing with them. But we're doing it in a way that's non-invasive and it's fun. And so those are where we start planting these seeds where we can start having conversations. And then through high school, we offer Friday Night Live. We have youth centers in Oroville and Gridley. And so we build that into our time with them. And sometimes it's just walking alongside them and having conversations like, how much time are you spending on Instagram? And then, oh my gosh, did you know? And then we have conversations. And so some of it's this it's indirect. But we're creating space for healthy relationships with our students, and just kind of creating, having challenging conversations, and then they can share with peers as well. So.
Yeah, so we're doing it on both ends. When we have relationships like that with students, it's a little bit easier to kind of help them navigate and walk along as we're doing it with them. But when we're doing a one-time classroom presentation, there is a piece in the module that talks a little bit about how to be savvy and more aware of some of the messaging that people are hearing.
Because
there's
everybody,
a lot of substance use reinforcement and messaging in general beyond just opiate use. So.
yeah, I think it's just appealing to everyone wants to think that they're smart.
Yes.
And everyone wants to think that they can't be outsmarted by someone else. So that's great. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Councilman Johnstone's.
Yes, thank you real quick. So it's wonderful to hear that you're going into the high schools, and I did hear you mention the junior highs. Do you have any kind of, our kids are younger and younger, and they are involved in social media at younger and younger ages. Do you have any type of curriculum or anything that you guys are doing at the elementary level to educate?
We're not directly, but I would definitely say BCOE would be a great resource to talk about what they are doing, because I know that that is something that there are certain departments that they work on. I just can't speak to the elementary school.
But you are doing junior high.
Junior high and high school. The curriculums that we have been vetted and tested with junior high and high school populations. We don't have an elementary school model currently.
And then what do you do, let's say for the maybe the elderly population that are with prescription, they're not aware, they're not into social media and those kinds of things. What kinds of curriculum, or how do you go to the senior centers, those kinds of things to educate as well?
And so I think that's the multifaceted approach. I think you talked about wraparound services. There are multiple agencies and coalitions within the community, and so we really target the youth and families in our programming, and that's where staff are specialized and trained. We would have to add more staff to start going beyond those, but that would be like the Butte Glen Opioid Safety Coalition, Healthy Rural,
Butte County Public Health has opioid work that they're doing as well. So between various organizations, we're all hitting different populations. We're not doing all of it, they're not doing all of it. Everybody's working their angle.
Takes a village.
Yep, it really
Thank
does.
you. I appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Weber?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I wanted to also mention that I wanted to, okay, sorry. I wanted to also say, I forgot to say that Operation Live On is going to be going over to Chico next, okay? So if anybody's interested in attending or getting educated on this, I have some cards over there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you one of my cards before you go, and then I'm going to invite you guys to my coalition, the Oroville Community Development Coalition, and come and see what we're doing, and then also I'll give you an opportunity to kind of speak to on some issues. So, and then what I really wanted to stress out, one last thing I wanted to stress is this is not. I think it's important that we understand that fentanyl is not just relegated to the unhoused or the homeless population, although that's kind of like the glaring example, right? We've all seen the videos. We clearly see stuff in our own town. But this touches everybody, all races, all, classes, it doesn't matter. And so I want to encourage anybody that's interested to attend one of these events and get trained in this, and then also have some of that Narcan, because it's super easy to distribute. As a matter of fact, Chief Legron's sitting right there, and they actually saved a guy's life in the parking lot of the OPD just, 2 weeks ago, when a person was overdosing and the driver of the vehicle pulled into the parking lot, went in, knocked on the glass and was like, hey, I got somebody overdosing. And they were able to Narcan the person right there in the parking lot and save the individual's life. So I would highly encourage you guys to attend. So can I come down there and give you guys one of my cards?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Ladies, thank you very much.
Thank you
You're,
so much
you're in
for
high
having
demand. I want to thank our city administrator, Brian Ring, because he worked diligently to get a presentation, and it is a topic, as Councilman Weber states very well, it's an epidemic, but we've got to start the training now and get the public informed. There's a lot of folks who do watch our YouTube videos later on, so we're happy to have the council format be able to give you a voice box too. And if you ever have any suggestions, there's an interesting thing. One of the things when vaping first came out, you know that it was allowable for a 6-year-old to walk into a store and buy it because it didn't fall under the tobacco rule. As councilman or city administrator Hubert Records, we were one of the first ones to write such an ordinance to put in that particular stop the vaping issue.
We've been working on a tobacco retail license for a while, so
Yeah.
we'll come back for that for another meeting.
Okay, well, we'd be interested to see it anytime.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Bye, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you. Tell Aunt Jen says hi.
All right, next up is public communication, hearing of non-agenda items. Do we have any agenda items on the queue?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. First, we'll begin with Bill Spear and follow that with the cameraman.
Sure, thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Christmas.
And there were shepherds living out in the field nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. And an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is Messiah the Lord. And this will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in clothes and lying in a manger." Suddenly a great company of heavenly hosts appeared with their angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to those whom his favor rests." And when the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." So I just come to bring good news of great joy this Christmas season about the Savior of the world, and that there is hope. It's easy to get tangled up in the fentanyl crisis and the border crisis and the wars and rumors of wars, but we have hope, good news of great joy. So, Father God, we thank you for Jesus and Christmas and celebrations, and we thank you that we do have hope for the youth, hope for our city, hope for all of the people that you have empowered, that you have put in leadership. It says there's no authority except that which you have established. And so we pray, Father, for that peace, Lord, upon us as we do what you have called us to do, as we look around and we see all the different people fighting the battles on the front lines. Thank you for behavioral health and their presentation and what they are doing, and all of the offshoots of that are distributing Narcan. And Lord, I just want to distribute some UCAN today, that you can make a difference, that you are. And so we ask for your mercy and grace upon our city. We ask your blessings upon all the families of all those who serve. Lord, that this Christmas, that you would shine through us, that you would let us be that light on a hill, that light on a shelf, that city on a hill, that you would bless and prosper us, that you would give us a supernatural anointing in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Up next, we have the cameraman, followed by Bobby O'Reilly.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. Just wanted to say, everybody, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. It's the last council meeting of the regularly scheduled council meeting. I don't know if you guys might pull a surprise special meeting on us. We still got half the month left, almost, kind of. But it's the last meeting. I'll probably be seeing you guys before the New Year, so Happy New Year, Merry Christmas. Hope you guys have a good time with your families and everything. Just a few matters talking tonight. First, the end. It's probably going to be a while before it ends. It feels like a never-ending story with me. But our old buddy Jonathan Zanzone, his preliminary hearing that's been on, 3 times now, has been continued out to January. So maybe we'll find out a little bit more when the preliminary hearing. Oh, well, it's really picking up that rain out there. Find out a little bit more about how he allegedly stole money from a suspect that he had in custody. But his prosecution's still ongoing. My legal case against him is still ongoing, which I expect will probably, maybe by this time next year, we'll be going to trial in federal courts about his unlawful arrest against me. The city, from the our depositions that I briefly spoke about last time, they seem to be more concerned about me running up to open doors of police vehicles and coming to complete and full stops at red lights before I began hitting the record button, rather than, the fact that their officer at the time put him in a position where they're responsible for his wrongdoing. He violated my right to record, and the attorney that's representing him, that the city has retained, is like, well, he didn't say you couldn't record. Well, yeah, he didn't say I couldn't record. Duh, everybody, it's evident in the video that. But he tells me, go stand over there or I will arrest you. And the law clearly states that if I'm in a right, tongue-tied, ladies and gentlemen, if I'm standing where somewhere I have the right to be and I'm filming, he can't tell me to go stand somewhere else. It doesn't matter if he doesn't say stop recording or not. It's the fact that he's telling me to go stand somewhere else so I can't engage into the protected act where I'm standing currently doing. That's the issue here. And he can't seem to grasp that. And just briefly, I think I have another member of the community behind me that might dig into it some more. I did see the press release about the email related to the body that was found over by Riverbend Park. Yeah, it wasn't sent to the right email address, but there could have been at the very least a response to that email. Hey, please send your email to this address, the proper place to report, rather just being left up in the air. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Bobby O'Reilly.
Good evening, thank you. I'm following up on my comments from last council meeting regarding a report of a possible dead body in the city. I am very disappointed to be called a liar. I received a response from city attorney that there was indeed an email sent to the police department reporting the discovery of what the individual believed to be a dead body somewhere in the city. In the included documents that I provided to you, please see the picture of the email. Since there is an apparent issue of misunderstanding, I have color-coded things to make it very easy to understand. In the blue circle, you will see the report was sent into the police department on November 5th to the general email for the police department. In the orange circle, you can see that 2 days later, the administrative secretary forwarded the email to the OPD sergeants, which is circled in yellow. Today has been 42 days since that email was sent out and seen by at least 7 individuals in the police department. 44 days since the report was made. That's 44 days that a body could have been laying somewhere in our city. During my last public comment, I stated it could have been a body in Riverbend Park that was discovered 19 days after this report came in. There was no follow-up to this report. Nobody checked into it, got a hold of the reporting party, or took any steps to just try to do anything about it. Instead, it was pushed aside. Regardless of how the report came into the department, the department has a duty to act. My concern since learning about this report had continued to be, what if we have another body laying in the city? Would you want it to be your family member laying out there? Being the person that I am, I do not give up. After being lied to about the report and lied to again that nobody in the police department seen the report, I took it upon myself to find answers since nobody else would. I contacted the reported party. She marked on a map where she discovered the body. I went to the location and I did indeed discover a body. Fortunately, let's see, where was I at? Fortunate thing is the body was that of an illegally discarded animal. Wrapped in a white bloody sheet, skull popping out of the top of the sheet, hair at the top of the body, leaving any reasonable person to believe they had just stumbled upon a deceased person. It is great that the police department will now implement new features on the website and make a disclaimer not to report things through email, but do not miss the problem here with the smoke and mirrors. We were lied to and continue to be lied to. I told you at the December 5th meeting that the email exists and that the individual has seen it. You have been told that was a lie. I have brought you proof. Will the lie continue? Also, why did the police chief order IT to disable emails of multiple employees today? I'm tired of being lied to. This should have been looked into. A citizen should not have gone and done the police's job to track this person down and to see if we had a damn body laying in our city. I'm disappointed.
That's all I had submitted, Mr. Mayor.
All right, next item is going to be reports and discussions, council announcements and reports, administration reports. Anyone from the council have any reports of committees, reports, looking back and forth? I should mention that we had the SCORE meeting today, and they had their little holiday party for all the other agencies, very nicely attended. The Ruddy Creek new pump station land acquisition was approved today, so we finally will have that in place, and that Ruddy Creek pump station will be moving forward, and that's a very critical issue for the new projects around the airport area. At BCAG, John Clark retirement happened to the last Butte County Association of Governments meeting, and Andy Newsom is the new director for BCAG. And then just sadly, I'll note that the death of Gordon Ando occurred on Friday, and his services are coming forward. Help me with the date. January 4th?
I believe it's the 3rd.
Oh, the 3rd. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Might want to say who he was.
Pardon?
Might want to say who he was.
Oh, Gordon Ando was the mayor for a couple terms here, and a long-term member of the community with a lot of different activities, from the sports stadium to the negotiating the SBF agreement to just a long list of things. I think the newspaper is going to do an article about it. If they didn't do it today, I haven't looked at the paper yet. So,
And Mr. Mayor, if you will, I wanted to let all the constituents as well as any of the council members know if they'd like to obtain more information on that event in regards to time and place, location. You can email me at my email address, or for the public, you can email me at cityclerk@cityoforoville.org.
Thank you. Any other council member reports? Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I have a couple just quick announcements. We had our second meeting between the YMCA and Feather River Rec and Park District. Continue to discuss options that would make the most sense for shared coexistence for those two entities at the convention center. Unfortunately, right now I know that the Feather River Rec and Park District is going through some organizational changes, so it's going to take a little bit longer here. They did have some programming already established through the beginning of calendar year 2024, so realistically they're looking at probably more towards the end of summer, early fall, where they can actually look and see what programs might be able to coexist with the YMCA's programs. Some ideas that have been discussed are having the YMCA do some morning programs. And that's likely what's going to happen. Starting in early January, going to start discontinuing some afternoon programs, but having their morning programs. And a lot of their morning programs are more for the senior programs that they have. And then we're going to continue to meet and try to find that mix where hopefully they can both coexist there. I did receive a quote. I know the council asked for a quote a couple council meetings ago about what the cost might be to repair the pool. They did get it in yesterday. The estimate's $32,500. There's tile damage. It's the plaster. So $32,500 is what their quote is for tile and plaster replacement. And again, we have another meeting scheduled in February, so we're going to keep the dialogue going. Unfortunately, again, the YMCA is going to have to reduce some of their programs right now in the short term, and then hopefully we can find that synergy between those two entities. So,
Okay.
and then I just one other thing I wanted to say is Allison Schmidt, our building official, her last day is with the city is tomorrow. So I just want to publicly recognize her, thank her for her work here with the city. She's going on some new adventures in her life, which I wish her nothing but the best, but she's been a pleasure to work with and done a lot of good things for us during her short time here. So that's all I have.
All right. I know we have a report from Mr. Belser. Would you like to speak about it?
I was, updating you on our progress with our Clean Streets grant and City Works. I don't get the opportunity to communicate with you as much as I would like to. We are very busy, and we are being inundated right now with people that are being bussed up here and left at our bus stops that make their way out into our public spaces and private property and build illegal encampments. And it's been rough the last 60 days especially. So we're out there working hard and doing our part that we can to get people services that will that want to receive them, and whether it be behavioral health or housing navigation, anything that we can do to get them off the streets or back with family.
Councilman Weber, I missed you on the scoop. Sorry.
I just wanted to touch base on what you said for the 32 grand for that. Is that did they make an assessment of the filtration systems while they were there, or?
The quote that I saw did not say anything about the filtration system, so I'm led to believe the filtration systems, I can't talk either, are working fine. But
Okay.
I can follow up with that. So this quote was just specifically to the tile and the plaster.
Yeah, and my memory on that was they were asked and that was stated. The equipment was okay.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll discuss that further later. What direction we want to go then? Is that where we're going? Is that where we're going to go?
Council agenda items. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then we could get that on agenda.
Rest of administration. Fred, do you have anything?
Yes, I have one report. Over the last few months, been working with AccuAlarm, and all of our museums now have reportable central call smoke detector and heat detectors installed in all of our museums. We finally have a mechanism if a fire or smoke is detected in our museums, it actually calls the fire department. So we actually have a new level of fire protection at our museums.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Thanks.
Amy, Ruth?
I just wanted to let you know that my granddaughter is performing with her school at State Theater at 6:30, so I might sneak out. 6:30.
Well, that's our timeline now.
Yeah.
I need to go see that as well, so I might sneak out.
Yep. All right, Amy.
Yeah, so I sat on an office hour call last week with CDBG and got some frustrating news from the state again. Our program that we were told we were going to be able to have a new NOFA in 2024 that would be opening up for all of the catalyst and first-time homebuyer, which we were planning on in 2023, was going to be in January. And they notified us that they are in the process of getting a new portal computer system, and therefore they will not put out a new NOFA until summer, fall of next year. So I believe it probably won't be till winter of next year because, things get extended and extended. They did state that they might put out a 2023 addendum in January for $19 million, which would only be for infrastructure projects, new ones that are shovel-ready, which I don't think we would be able to apply for. So I just wanted to let you know that I was getting ready to bring that back to council in January to move forward with the 2024 app, but that is going to be postponed for several months.
All right. Any other department reports? Seeing none, then we'll move to the next item, which is a consent agenda. Does the councilman have any items they'd like to pull on consent or any questions about consent?
Yeah, and I think it would be good to, our attorney is not here, but I believe Mr. Weber should recuse himself from the consent.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll let him abstain, and then I'll ask the same question. Any council members have any consent items to pull or Move forward then, if I would entertain a motion for consent calendar.
Motion to adopt the consent calendar?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Johnstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Riggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson?
Yeah.
Councilmember Goodson?
Janet?
Is on.
Ooh,
Okay.
Maybe she just spoke.
I have Councilmember Weber as an abstention, Vice Mayor Smith,
Yes.
and Mayor Pittman.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right, can we bring it back in? Thank you. All right, Mr. Weber's joined us, regular business. Item number 7 is an ordinance of the city council for the city related to the addition of chapter 9, section 6.08.102A, a dangerous or vicious animal policy. First reading.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. What you have before you tonight is a consideration of amending the Municipal Code, Chapter 9, Section 6. What this is just a better definition of what is a dangerous animal or what is a vicious animal. Right now, we have a gap in our municipal code that does not allow us to efficiently and effectively deal with an animal that has either bitten or has menaced in a manner that is threatening to the community. So what we're trying to do is amend the code to add some additional teeth to that code. This is the first opportunity to look at that ordinance and provide input and feedback on that. We will be bringing this back at the January 2 meeting for a public hearing to get the public's input. I've asked Gregor from the SPCA, he's our animal control officer here in town, to share with you some of the experiences that he's had and also to share with you the necessity of why we need to amend the code.
Welcome. Thanks for having me today. So I'm going to read a little bit of what I put together for you guys, some of which LeGrone already stated to you. So the reason I'm here today is to discuss the importance of adopting the proposed ordinance. The current ordinance does not allow us to effectively and efficiently resolve aggressive dog incidences by holding owners accountable. Adopting the new ordinance, we would be able to more efficiently process aggressive dog cases and hold owners accountable by protecting our public. It also protects the city from liability as well. Prime example, a person living in the vicinity of Pacific Coast Producers, or PCP, on Mitchell Avenue owned multiple aggressive dogs living on the owned and stored multiple aggressive dogs that had repeatedly escaped the yard attacking PCP workers on their way to work. Unfortunately, our current ordinances did not allow conditions and/or dispositions to be implemented on the aggressive dogs, resulting in reoccurring incidences. Should the same situation occur under the newly adopted ordinance, we can immediately seize the animals and start the determination process to prevent future incidences. Aggressive dog incidences are not isolated events, rather ongoing public safety issues within Oroville. We need our ordinances updated as a tool in addressing the concern. In closing, let's keep everyone safe and create a fair and efficient process for keeping aggressive dogs under conditions by holding owners accountable and not allowing this to continue without resolution. So our current process for removing dogs from the city, or that's just it, we have a lengthy process in getting the dogs quarantined and then getting the dogs actually removed from the city. If this gets brought, comes through, what it will do is it will allow the owner to keep their dog, maintain their dog on their property with a strict set of guidelines. And so it also gives us the ability to track where the animal goes. So some of the animals that we've had removed from the city, we don't know where they go. We don't have any ability to track that with our current ordinance. And we've had a relapse where one of the dogs, two of the dogs were found, brought back to the property, and another incident had occurred. So very important, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we can go with this.
And Mr. Mayor, this ordinance, just to be clear with everybody, we're not trying to go out and take more people's animals or anything like that. This doesn't immediately lead to the animal being euthanized or anything like that. There is due process systems in here so that everyone has an opportunity to appeal. What it does for us, though, is when you are given the opportunity to be a responsible pet owner and you choose not to be a responsible pet owner and somebody is hurt, injured, or that animal comes back into the city, then that gives us tools to more effectively deal with that animal and the individual. Right now, the case that we're talking about, the only choice that we had on this was to go criminal. I mean, we had to, and I don't know as though that's something that we want to regularly be doing, because the reality of the matter is now we're storing the dogs as evidence, which is expensive to the city. I mean, so that is not something that we want to be doing. I'm not sure that best ensures the safety of the public with the way the ordinance or the municipal code currently is. This allows us to be more aggressive and to actually, I think, improve the safety for our community when there is a large animal or any size animal that is, dangerous or vicious. I mean, it is strengthening those things, allowing our animal control to do what's necessary to better protect the community.
Thank you. I'm keeping my fingers crossed because as a person that lived in this building with the rain that's falling, I'm hoping the drains are going to work.
If not, Mr. Mayor, I think the first place we'll notice is right over here. So anybody in that corner should move.
Exactly. Councilman Thompson has a question.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys bringing this forward to council. This is an item that I'm very passionate about. I'm a dog owner myself, but I have, just to be honest, I have no love for vicious dogs. My life was threatened once by a dog, and through a series of lucky circumstances, my life was spared. We moved into a house in Thermalito. I think the first day or second day we were there, my 9-year-old son was attacked by a 120-pound pit bull on our sidewalk in like 5 feet from my front door, like not towards their house. Literally, the dog came on our property and attacked my son. And luckily, well, not luckily, but thankfully, the pet owner got rid of the dog permanently. But that's not always the case. I also know last year, through friends that I know, another young boy was completely murdered by a group of dogs, and then the mom went out to save her son, who was already gone, and then the dogs began to attack her. And we see these kind of situations on the news, not irregularly. I think sometimes it's so common that it's not always reported, but absolutely disgusting and horrible circumstances. And so I think this is something that, and more people who are own dogs, and no matter what kind it is, but once a dog shows its behavior that is violent, not only should that dog be immediately taken care of, but the owner should be held responsible. So we all have different feelings on this, but I'm very much passionate on the side of if a dog shows this kind of behavior, that it needs to be taken care of immediately and taken out of basically the opportunity of harming or killing another citizen. So thank you for putting this forward, and I'm like, I'm to the extreme, like, take it out, take that dog out now. So, I know everybody's got their different feelings, but that's my own personal thoughts on it. So,
and some of this is not limited to just people; it's towards animals. I've had cases where there's been somebody had inherited or adopted a new animal and was not aware that that animal was aggressive towards other animals, and so let's say the dog gets out of the yard and the dog is aggressive towards or attacks another cat or an animal within their neighborhood. When we're made aware of it, and with this new ordinance being implemented, it would give us the ability to, okay, we're going to track it. Gives us the ability to make a determination on the dog, and then the dog is then returned to the owner or stays with the owner until a determination is made, where it gives a strict rule set on the animal for them to be able to keep the animal. So it may not be aggressive towards people, but we know it's aggressive towards other animals, and we can put a strict set of guidelines on those animals. So there's a large array of different reasons, for this ordinance to be implemented, and not always just the terrible ones. But I mean, attacking somebody else's cat or another dog is terrible, equally terrible, but might not be as intense as some other attacks.
Vice Mayor Smith is up in the queue.
So, Chief LeGrone, there was no pun intended when you said extra teeth.
No,
of course not.
That was an accident.
Yeah, so a question, a couple of questions. So, and a personal experience as shared by Councilman Thompson. Some years back, I had an attack, vicious dog, and it was owned by a gang family at the end of my street when I lived in the Bay Area. And I had to, the dog was impounded. In fact, the cops were scared. They wouldn't even get out of the car until the doggy police showed up to apprehend the offending animal. But I had to attend a vicious dog hearing and sit across these gangbangers there at the police station and then testify. It was rather intimidating, I have to say. And so is there any component with this ordinance where then the general public, if they have an encounter, that they're going to have to then, maybe put in that kind of a predicament? And then the other part, the second part is, and there's a lot of usage of the word animal. And just kind of curious, in Oroville, are there other concerns other than, the typical when we think of a vicious dog? Are there other animals that was kind of being referred to, perhaps in the ordinance as well, that we've had issues with? That's a curiosity on my part.
I can't speak to other animals. I mean, I think anytime you write an ordinance, you would always do it as broadly as possible instead of specifically targeting a dog, because then, as soon as we target dogs, vicious dogs, then we're going to have a vicious wombat or whatever. I mean, it's going to be something. So we just leave it as animals. I mean, the other part of that, you're not going to this is a civil matter between what would be between the city, animal control, and the dog owner. It would not include typically witness testimony in a situation as which you described. So no, nobody's going to have to come down and, point that out. I mean, typically this will be between the city and the dog owner.
Absolutely, and just
or the animal owner, the wombat owner.
Basically, the facts or the facts of the incident are typically all that's needed for a judgment, from my experience. Although witness testimony is definitely great for the case, but not always needed.
Remember, you're in a civil arena where preponderance of the evidence, you 51%. I mean, you're not beyond a reasonable doubt, so it's not necessary, and the dog or the animal doesn't have a right to confront its accuser. So it is, it's a little bit broader.
The Bay Area is a different world, let me tell you.
Well,
I appreciate that.
I will tell you again, the question is how you go about getting those facts into evidence.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do have to have witnesses to bring the facts in. Mm-hmm. Not always, but sometimes you. Yeah. Every circumstance is different. We have held some dog bite hearings here where, again, some you do have to have some they stipulate to the facts, and then it's just a matter of, okay, what mitigation is there? Right. But sometimes you do have to have witnesses testify because there is no stipulation of the facts, and there's no other way to get. Unfortunately, there's no other way to get it in. Every case is dependent, but I think the chief is correct. Typically, we're able to handle these where it's not necessary. Yeah. Most of them are resolved by some stipulation. With some pretty severe conditions like keeping animals with a muzzle, or keeping them in enclosed areas, enclosed dog runs, for lack of a better term. Yeah.
Just
six-sided cages, that kind of stuff. But.
If I might, so in the ordinance, so it talks about, my dog, and you talked about the dog attacking another animal. Just a hypothetical. So a dog gets out, and the cat scratches him on the nose, and he ends up killing the cat. But in general, the dog may not necessarily, but you just had an engagement and something happened and one thing led to another. But in the ordinance, it looks like then that dog would then be deemed.
No,
not so you take a judgment call. In other words,
it's a judgment call, okay. Absolutely. So because the dog does something, at the end of the day, they're animals, right?
Yeah.
So, and we take a look at each case on an individual basis. And so, we get many of those where, my neighbor's dog was out chasing my cat. And we get out there and there's no evidence supporting it, or, the dog's usually nice. I mean, it all depends.
Yeah, because someone could read that it looks kind of draconian on one level, so.
But it does allow you to deal with that animal that is a problem animal. I mean, but, it's totality of the circumstance. What is the temperament of the animal? What's the past history of the animal? What is the responsibility level of the owner? All of those things come into play, and Gregor will evaluate all of those before he makes a decision. This just allows him to make a decision. Right now, he doesn't have that ability because our code don't support any decision other than to walk away.
I actually received a couple of calls on this issue, and they're very happy to see it come forward, especially the issue that, really we're talking about irresponsible animal owners. And that's what creates the bigger issue. The one thing that I was commented on is to see some strength in the ordinance to make sure that the fencing is accurate and in good condition, because sometimes the fencing alone can be the issue, that the animal gets out, and once it gets out once, it knows where to go again and again and again. So it's nice to see the discussion in the ordinance to have fencing appropriate and adequate and not in poor shape and condition. So, Councilman Smith, are you still on the queue?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Any cards on this issue?
Unsubmitted.
Okay, unsubmitted. Then I would entertain a motion on this issue.
I motion that we approve this.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
We're just waiving it tonight, right?
We're waiving the first reading.
Waiving? Okay. All right. So we don't need a motion?
We do need a motion
but not
waiving.
to approve it.
Right,
We'll-
okay. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Johnston?
Yes.
Councilmember Riggs? Yes. Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Goodson?
Yes.
Councilmember Weber?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pittman?
Yes.
Passes
Thank you.
unanimously.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll be back on January 2nd to have the public hearing on this.
All right.
Thank you.
Item number 8, authorization to issue requests for proposals to implement the Oroville marketing campaign. Is this, oh, here he is. Wes, welcome.
Chief Legrone will be happy to know that my pet wombat is fully caged 24 hours.
That's good to hear. Good to hear. Thank you, sir.
Before you is the next step in marketing Oroville on 3 fronts. First, recruiting investors in commercial, industrial, and market rate housing. Second, augmenting existing collaborative tourism marketing efforts and campaigns. And third, and I think most importantly, building community pride among our citizens and our businesses. As you know, the process of preparing to promote Oroville has been somewhat painful, but we now have a logo and a marketing strategy that have been approved by the council and by the community. Now we are seeking 1 or more marketing consultants to help us implement these plans. The request for proposals before you solicits 1 or more interested parties to work with us for 3 years on those 3 fronts. Local firms are encouraged to bid. We plan to issue the RFP January 2nd, with questions due January 19th. Proposals would then be due on January 30th. The existing ad hoc creative committee will then review any proposals, make recommendations, and bring before you in February a proposed implementation plan complete with budget and proposed consultants and timelines. We ask for your approval to proceed with this RFP.
Vice Mayor Smith, are you up? Or Thompson? Thompson's up, sure.
Just briefly, you mentioned a painful process. Could you elaborate? I'm not quite clear on what you're talking about.
I believe we've all purged that from memory.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah, thank you. Vice Mayor Smith.
Yeah, I just want to commend the staff on a great RFP. I love the staff report. Well done, very well done. Very pleased with it. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Seeing none, we don't need a necessary vote. We just do it by consensus?
On this one,
Direction given? Seeing no objection, you have your words. Please move forward. Thank you for the presentation. Good job. Item number 9 is the presentation of the airport update and request to modify the contract between the City of Oroville and Genco Aviation. Mr. Nissen, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. As requested, we're here to provide a update on the airport operations and the once I've got through the city's part of the airport operations, and Ms. Anderson will give you an update on the FBO operations and her side of things. So if we can proceed to the next slide, please. Some of the things we'll cover off tonight will be some brief numbers on fuel sales for the years thus far in 2023, The airport manager responsibilities, recent and upcoming airport inspections, plan future capital improvement projects and improvements, public safety utilization, airport operations, airport marketing and potential use. And then after that's finished up, then Ms. Anderson will touch on the FBO update, fuel, maintenance activities, flight instructions, and community events that she is part of. Next slide, please. So on fuel sales, just want to touch fairly briefly on this, but just to give you guys an idea of what happens out there with the fuel sales. Been asked on numerous occasions about how the prices are set, where we come up with that, and their competitiveness over time. It's important to note that the fuel prices fluctuate greatly each week. I get an update each Monday on the cost that it would be for a full load of fuel, as well as the increase or decrease in those numbers. Some important things that I felt to note, just very briefly, avgas, which is a regular, basically airplane gasoline for your small single engine, I'll call them hobby type aircraft at this point, is down 8 cents early in November and went up half a cent, down 9, down 3. So it's kind of all over the place. Jet's a little more erratic, down 13 cents early in November and actually up 44 cents by the 23rd of November. As of right now, the Oroville Airport is 30 cents below average for the aviation gasoline and 58 cents below average on Jet A. These averages are within a 50-mile radius of the Oroville Airport, and they'll include larger areas such as Sacramento and smaller areas like Chester and Quincy. A lot of times their prices will stay put. I try to factor in what it may cost us for the fuel, kind of like you see at the gas stations. They may not get a load of fuel every day, but we see those fluctuations in prices at the pump, perceiving what we might have to pay for our next load of fuel. You know, if we keep the price low because that's what we paid for it, then when we go to buy it, it's up 75 cents. All of our profit that we realized off of that first load, that last load will go away. All the profit goes in buying the next one. So I don't move it a lot. I don't move it as often as the service stations, but there are some fluctuations actually out there at the airport. Next slide, please. I'm trying to cover up my notes here. So there's some numbers on the aviation fuel sales for 2023 so far. I finished that out in October, and I do have the November numbers. But as you can see, it varies anywhere from 600 to 3,000 gallons based on what's happening with the weather. A lot of these smaller aircraft don't have air conditioners, stuff like that. So when the weather's good, they're out doing their thing, flying around, checking stuff out. When it gets extremely hot, just like a hot car, you know, you get the thing started, getting it up in the air, it takes a little while for things to cool down. So total on that, including the November numbers of 659 gallons, was a 20,104 gallon fuel sales thus far in 2023. Next slide, please. Jet A fuel sales, same thing here, covered each month. November wasn't listed on there. November was a little bit different. Ms. Anderson will cover some of the stuff regarding this a little bit later. But November was a 2,091 gallon sales month. And a good portion of the reason for that was that 1,610 gallons were sold from the truck that she purchased for use at the airport. The other larger month, September, with the 2,113, was largely because one of the Erickson Air Crane big Sikorsky helicopters came in for fuel, and she was able to help get that done out there. And I don't recall how many gallons that thing took? Somewhere around 1,000. Yeah, so about 1,000 gallons of that. So good numbers, moving fuel for our small airport. The fuel truck will be a huge benefit out there. Going to move a lot more fuel with that into the regional jets, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Next slide, please. Let's cover the typical responsibilities. The airport manager I'm currently finalizing the agreement with the FAA for a flight check and calibration of the VGSI, which is a visual glide slope indicator, or PAPI, which is a precision approach position indicator. Fixtures on the runways for 1331 and 220. These lights tell the pilots as they're approaching they're too high, too low, just a visual. It's white, red, green. So those obviously have to be precise. So we're having the FAA come out, check those. We had some new fixtures installed here some time back. And we want to make sure, for obvious reasons, that they're exactly where they need to be. So that's been quite a process to get the FAA. As with everything with the federal government, very, very slow, very long, tedious. We send them information, they send it back, we send, they send. So we're trying to finalize that up. Right now, we got it just shy of scheduling. So we're just waiting on the funding to be approved on their end. Moving on, the FAA grant billing for any of the projects that we have. The most recent one for 2023, early this year, the crack seal project. And then as those bits and pieces, as typical invoicing goes, I get these invoices, the city pays those, and then I submit the paperwork and the justification to the FAA, and then they reimburse the city for those expenditures on the grants that we accept. Still dealing with some environmental impacts from that Delta regional jet excursion here several years back. It went off the end of the runway and burned, spilled a bunch of fuel onto the ground. Unfortunately, the fuel doesn't seem to be the issue, but perhaps the chemicals that were used to extinguish that fire. Hangar reassignments, ground lease expirations on a few of the ground leases out there, security of the facility perimeter and fueling system, and fragments of debris and lighting inspection repairs. If you can go to the next slide, please, Kayla. Preparation for upcoming projects through coordination with our engineering consultant, and of course, implementing the short and long-term goals of the council. We had touched on security briefly earlier. It's one of the things that I keep an eye on. We have had a few things happen outside the fence. Some shady individuals that are looking for an easy target for theft, catalytic converters, gasoline, that type of thing. The hours that I work when I arrive out there tends to be the time that they like to be doing their stuff. I've interrupted 3 different actions out there. Nothing too crazy, but as soon as they see that I'm on to what they're doing, they bounce. So had some of the, what do you call them now, the unhoused living in a private vehicle out there out of the blue. That was an interesting run-in with those folks. They're always fun to deal with. So we already covered that, and we will move to the inspections. Next slide, please. Already got it. Thank you. So some of the inspections we had for this year, these are the first 2 are annuals. The Epic Aviation Fuels Inspection. They come out, crawl through our entire fuel system, every single component, literally picking the fly stuff out of the pepper. Every single thing is looked at, single thing is tested, evaluated. It's a very long process, but we got a great score, as we have in the past. And then the Caltrans Division of Aeronautics Inspection on the 8th of November this year, same thing. They go out, we go completely around the airport, look at all the lighting, look at the pavement condition, look at the striping conditions, and they provide their findings on that. They're basically California's version of the FAA. So, and then we are, as I stated earlier, working through the PAPI flight check that's pending for the FAA to come out and fly that and give us the green light and help us make the calibrations necessary via radio. So next slide, please. So I'm going to kind of fast forward on this just a little bit for the sake of understanding on the next 2, but very briefly, these are some of the projects we're working on for this year: the crack seal of the main ramp near the FBO, as well as the taxiway leading out to the south ramp. For fiscal year 2025, that time will be used to design fiscal year 26 project, which is some new pavement going out to what will be new hangar sites. They'll pave the portions out there to be able to access the new hangars that will be built in the future. 27, the design phase to reconstruct and realign taxiway S, which is, for those that may be familiar, the taxiway that goes out to the golf course. That comes directly into an active runway, which the FAA deemed extremely dangerous here about 2015. Fiscal year 27, design phase rehab for runway 220 and the lighting systems. Could you go 2 slides forward for me? Thank you. So this is a color-coded map to kind of show the areas of these projects. It doesn't show up very well as far as the dates on your end, but, and I need to pull mine up. So the area to the top right, for me, it should be the same for you, is basically the ramp area near the FBO. For orientation purposes, figure the top of your screen is Oro Dam, and then the bent area down below, just above where it says Oroville Municipal Airport, is Larkin Road. The yellow indicates the areas that will be crack sealed this year. The smaller yellow box to say the 7 and 8 o'clock position is the ramp that's utilized by CAL FIRE for helicopter operations when those things happen. And then the areas between the existing hangars, they're also noted in yellow. The green is the taxi lanes that we talked about a minute ago. So actually, let me back up. 2026, so project for 2026, I apologize, is the taxiway realignment for the golf course. The larger blue area there is the parking ramp for the aircraft at the golf course. And then the blue shows where the new taxiway will be and where it'll come into the runway. As you'll see the crosshatched area there indicating the end of the runway where the aircraft will access. Currently on there in the long straight crosshatched area, unfortunately I don't have a laser pointer, I apologize. That's where the existing taxiway is right now that comes into the middle, not really the middle, but comes into the main long runway there. So that will be gone. They'll completely remove that and realign that for FAA standards. And then the runway 220, the long runway that the golf course taxiway comes into, cross-hatched in red, will be the project for 2029 to rehab that entire runway and the lighting system related there too. That was part of the crack seal project for 2023. That's been done. That is actually in pretty good shape. Get about a 5 to 8 year lifespan out of the crack sealing. Basically, you know, patching the cracks, trying to keep the weeds from coming up. As vegetation comes up, it just deteriorates the asphalt a lot faster than it would if we don't seal that thing up. Obviously very similar to what happens out on the roadways throughout town. So that, hopefully that covers everything. We got the taxi lanes, we got the, all of those items. So if I can get myself caught back up here. Concurrently with that is the ALP update, which is Airport Layout Plan update. That's in the process right now. That's a 4-year grant with expectations to have that finished up in 2 to 4 years, so somewhere in the 2 to 3 year window, hopefully. Again, we can forward information to the FAA. They respond in whatever timeline they decide to respond. Sometimes they're pretty quick, and many times they are very slow. I have a few notes here that I just, for simplicity's sake, for understanding's sake on your part, want to read off a couple of things here that the ALP, the Airport Layout Plan update, will be prepared to accommodate for all forecast traffic and to meet FAA requirements. Special attention will be given to the following: compliance with FAA standards, providing adequate facilities to accommodate future growth, apron, FBO, and hangar expansions, and evaluation of future aviation compliance, including commercial and industrial development. This will include public involvement, environmental considerations, including a cultural resource survey, a detailed inventory of existing facilities, aviation forecasts, facility requirements based on demand, capacity, evaluation, development, and evaluation of possible alternatives. The benefits or results expected for the airport layout plan update will provide the City of Oroville and the region with guidance for further potential development of the Oroville Municipal Airport that supports its long-term goals as established by the City of Oroville. The plan will present a definitive strategy for airport development with detailed facility requirements, development costs, and suggested programs of financing projected costs, excuse me. The study will be the result of full consideration of the environment and compatibility with adjacent areas and communities of city and county master plans, as well as the California Aviation Plan and National Airport System Plan. So essentially, this is a huge broad spectrum look at our airport, the land that's related there to, how that can be best utilized, what's available, what we're going to put there. In my personal opinion, there's a few buildings out there that were poorly placed that we'll need to look at as part of this layout plan update, see what we can do about that, how we can work around those, or if they will be added into that. So that's the gist of that. Before I move any farther, is there any questions on the airport layout plan update before I?
Vice Mayor Smith has a question, I think. Right?
Yeah, so I appreciate all the information, Cody. Great. Question on fiscal year 27 with that redesign for the golf course. Just thinking in terms of customer service and providing, excellent opportunities for our pilots when they land to have a place to go and chill. And I just think that would be a great piece. So the question I have is, why are just the design phase at fiscal year 27? So that's 3 to 4 years before we even think about designing that so that we can meet those FAA requirements. I just wonder why not start now?
Well, that's basically for the funding to be available. We can only apply for certain pieces of funding to do these projects as they come. And as the existing airport layout plan is what we're working off of right now from 2013, so 10-year-old document, and that's where those have come through. So we want to protect our active runway taxiway services first and foremost. These are the things that are used every day. And then obviously create opportunities for growth through the taxi lane construction and the ability to build more buildings, bring in more revenue, one, and two, of course, create areas for these aircraft to go.
Yeah, I just think it's a great idea. It's like, why wait? But I mean, if there's certain triggers, and I understand that. I understand the glacial movement of government.
Right, and we can still, it's still in use right now. It's still in good shape. So, it does get used when the weather's nice. People fly in all the time, use that golf course. We got the vegetation down. It's in good shape.
Yeah, and the restaurant you have over there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just great. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, but it's a little bit difficult for folks to reach it.
Yeah. So again, right now they can use that. They'll get over there. Some of the folks will land and then ask about it. They see the sign there and kind of give them a rundown on how to get over there. Offer them a ride over there. That type of thing. In the future, I wouldn't mind seeing us get, of course, like a club car or at minimum a little electric golf cart type of thing that they can take from there. They can actually make it without even exiting the fence of the airport. We can make a path for them to get over to the golf course side, go in, have their meal, watch some driving range stuff, and come back. So
great.
kind of a neat thing, relatively inexpensive. I think that we can get something like that to happen. So
let's do it.
Councilman Johnstone has a question.
Thank you for the presentation. And my questions may be answered when you speak, so I don't know for sure. So if I'm jumping the gun, forgive me on that. I love all the information that you're giving. My questions are related to the self-service fuel delivery. Do we have plans on upgrading those?
yes, there's two components to that. In the short term, I am finishing up on an RFP, or excuse me, what's the word I'm looking for here? Staff report for the replacement of the kiosk. That's our biggest problem. So, and it's actually, the kiosk isn't the problem, it's the AT&T service. Not to sit here and bash on AT&T, but the fact of the matter is, on a night like tonight, there's a strong chance that tomorrow there's going to be problems out there. We have rain. I call AT&T. They come out. They literally push a button, pop this card out, stand there for 30 seconds, slap it back in, problem solved for now. So we're looking into a couple of different options that will be cellular-based through Verizon Wireless, so we can get away from that until such time as we can get fiber optic out there.
Okay, because there was the comprehensive revitalization plan that was produced, the report back in December of 2008 cited the same issues, that there was, at the time of their visit, they learned that there was intermittent issues with the card lock and the electrical system at the fuel station. So I'm just wondering why we haven't addressed this issue since 2008. I know that's not on you guys because you haven't been there that long, but I mean, it seems like it's been an issue which would be a deterrent for, you know, many of our private pilots. You know, if they can't get fuel, they're not going to stop, you know. So I'm glad to see that the new fuel truck is there, but that's something that I would like to see happen sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I've got the numbers on those items for the cellular kiosk. You know, it's about $30,000. We can talk about that at a later time, obviously, but it'll be a good thing. It'll take a little bit to get it put in. The electricity doesn't seem to be an issue. One thing I will know, and not to talk negatively of others, but what I have found since I've been out there is that folks don't turn the switch on. They'll run their card and then call me in a tither because they can't get fuel. They've done the same with her. And okay, walk through. Let me keep you on the phone while I do this. So they'll go through the whole process. It says that it's accepted, but I can't get any fuel. Did you flip the switch on? What switch?
Is there some kind of like written direction?
It's labeled.
And they don't even.
Blatantly labeled. It's, I'm like, you mean this button right here
Yeah.
that says push for rewind? It's
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like the gas pumps there's certain gas pumps where you push the button that says 8791
flip
diesel.
up to turn on.
Yeah, or you got to flip the little lever, and there's people that just don't flip the lever, and then they get upset with us and then end up going someplace else when their problem was just simply taking a step back, going, oh, there it is. I mean, there's no other switch out there. There's one switch for avgas, there's one switch for jet fuel, depending upon which you select off the card reader kiosk. So, but again, the issues with the phone service will be addressed through this new kiosk. And then, you know, this time of the year is a perfect time to do it.
Okay.
Flying's not taking so much. Jet fuel, we can get that into the truck. We can build that separately in the FBO. So, you know, if we pick a good rainy week, we can get that thing installed under a portable canopy, or the company will get it installed, booted up, and we're good to go. And I ran all these things through our IT department, so they're on board. We'll be able to support that. Nice thing about what we're looking at is that it can be remotely monitored. You can pull reports, you can do all that stuff from your cell phone.
Okay.
For those that have that capability. For instance, you know, you can be in Tennessee and be able to look at this thing, see what's going on, turn the pump on, do all the things that we can do now in 2023 that we couldn't do in 1989 when that thing was probably put in.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I would really like to be updated when that starts to take place, okay? So,
Absolutely,
awesome.
yeah. I would expect here in, probably by the next meeting, you'll see that staff
Nice.
report for the thing. So, let's see here.
Let me ask a quick, it's actually a comment and question, because back when I was on the job, we had a countywide grant for fiber optic cables to be distributed throughout the community on a public safety basis, and it was the Fire Chiefs Association that was managing it. And Verizon specifically was supposed to put fiber optic at the Oroville Airport. I'm assuming that it never happened. And I mean, this goes way back to Sandra Sato, and some of you weren't even around here when we had that discussion, but it's probably something we need to look at to have a discussion with those folks that would consider that we get fiber optic out to that end of town. I mean, it's a hindrance for
Yes.
businesses, for not just our situation here, but as the new businesses improve. We might have some discussions with Verizon on that particular issue, because they do have a number of residences out there, and that's where they like to put fiber, is around residences. They don't care about our commercial activities. So it's something we should probably put on our agenda to look at, and definitely agree with, you know, whatever improvements you can in the meantime, because I just want to throw out the other question about, you mentioned security. We have some security cost numbers coming, and if you have suggestions for camera vision and that kind of monitoring out there, I'm sure we might be interested in that, because that's the way of the world now.
Sure.
Camera monitoring.
Yeah, I'd like to see some cameras at the fuel island area.
Yeah.
beyond that, with the security, the fence, we really don't have too much trouble inside the fence, which
Right.
is a good thing, you know, as the
Yeah.
gates are getting closed and
Certainly.
whatnot.
Mr.
To touch
Mayor-
on the fiber from a sec.
If I may, just really quick, there's that project, I believe we spoke about it here a couple of months ago, but it's supposed to be done over the next 18 months. It's supposed to put fiber optics throughout the entire city of Oroville. So,
Including the airport?
well, that's what I was just, that's what I was just talking. They
Yeah.
said the whole city, so
Okay.
Right.
the airport's in, so we'll confirm that, but I'm pretty sure, and I know it's the county has a portion of it as well, which I believe they're thinking of some of the
Right.
areas
and
around the
I
city.
think
so.
that's a great idea. But we're also noticing the new security cameras that we have on that trailer. They don't have any fiber, but they work really well. So the technology is ramping up.
Oh, sure.
To where you may not even need fiber, but, you know, hopefully we'll see that, you know, come past here soon, so.
Yeah, you can't imagine the frustration that we have with,
Oh, yeah,
with AT&T out there. It's like, hey, it's Cody again.
Right.
Oh,
I live
By
over.
3, and
Yeah.
then they show up at 4:30. Is somebody here? I'm like,
Uh-huh, I get you. Councilmember, Vice Mayor Smith is on the queue.
Just a comment on Starlink. I mean, I don't know if there's been any look into that. I know we think it's UFOs, but you see the flying over all the time. I know Putin doesn't appreciate it because it's being used in the Ukraine, but and actually, very good service. But I don't know if the latency, if there's an issue with that, but it's just a thought.
Councilman Weber, you on the queue?
I removed myself from the queue, but I'll go ahead. I was going to kind of piggyback off your comment, Mr. Mayor, about the LVP camera system we have, because I know we're also looking into the fixed,
Yeah.
that can be mounted to a wall as well.
Right.
So that might be another good
Yeah.
option for us to look at.
Great idea, yeah.
Yeah, there was some camera talk here a while back through our IT department, some different types of locks, some cameras and stuff like that. Not sure what happened with that, but I haven't heard anything in a while. It seemed like that was gonna be citywide, you know, have different types of locks and stuff. So it's been talked about. To touch back on the fiber, it's my understanding from the general manager at Butte County Mosquito and Vector Control District that they paid to get fiber to their building along Larkin Road. So I was talking with Mr. Mayo earlier. We can look into that through the airport layout plan.
Right.
I don't think that it would be that big of a deal to at least get the conduit in
Sure.
behind their building and wrap it around. It's gonna be a long run,
Yeah.
but it gets it there. It gets
that'd
it
be a
to
wonderful
us.
idea.
So, you know, if we can get the conduit in possibly for a relatively low cost, then
Oh.
Verizon, AT&T, I don't have much good to say about AT&T,
Yeah.
but, you know, somebody that can run
idea.
reliable fiber optic to us, because it's very frustrating for us on our side of the road
Certainly.
that we can't make a phone call.
Right.
But yet, we have multi-million-dollar businesses in the airport business park. Surely they have service, you know,
Yeah.
Bamford, P31,
Right.
the USDA. How is it that we can't make a phone call, but yet they probably have high-speed internet? So definitely a frustration.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're going to Jennifer's presentation?
we're done with you.
Are we done with you yet? I don't know.
No, sir, I'm going to babble on.
Okay.
I'll try to wrap it up here pretty quickly, so if we can go to the next slide. One more, please. One more. So we already covered that. I won't waste any more time. This is just some current day aerial shots of the areas where the hangar lanes might go off to the left of those 3 buildings that you see on the right.
How many more hangars could we put out there on terms of ground purposes?
Well, there could be 3 to 4 more rows in what we can fund for the taxi lanes through the federal government. We'll have to cover part of the asphalt that goes under the hangars.
Sure.
And up to them,
Yeah.
because it's a for-profit type of thing. But what we will be bringing back later, once that asphalt is on the agenda, so to speak,
Sure.
to be done, is some larger hangars. You know, there's a lot of request for hangars for larger aircraft. They have some, you know, the twin engines, that taller,
Right.
wider wingspan, so we'll definitely be looking into that.
Okay.
Get some of that. They're gonna be worth more money and have electric doors and just bigger. Fewer of them, but larger hangars. There's
That's-
definitely a need for that.
That's a primary income that we have out there.
It is, yeah, fuel and the hangar rental. So, next couple of slides, please, Kayla. We'll go to the one titled Airport Emergency / Public. Yeah, thank you. So, I touched on this earlier, many of you have seen it, but times of immediate need, the airport south ramp has become a helitack base at moment's notice for CAL FIRE operations, including call when needed helicopters. This happens at the drop of a hat. We get a fire, kick off like the wall fire that we had here several years back. There's helicopters everywhere they set up out there. So with that, I'll be working throughout the wet season to strengthen those contracts with CAL FIRE and the Forest Service if they're interested. Generally, it's CAL FIRE that sets up out there, and make sure that we are getting compensated properly for those contracts and that they are in place and robust so that we don't have to delay them when they want to set up. Another thing that we have going on out there, I wanted to touch on briefly, out front on Chuck Yeager Way, we have an agreement with the Department of Motor Vehicles for their CDL training for commercial drivers. So that's something else you may see going on out there if you're in the area. Public safety, CHP and CAL FIRE AirTAC use the airport for pilot training periodically throughout the year. Coast Guard also practices missed approach operations. So we do have a fair amount of other things happening other than just the typical airplanes coming in. Next slide, please. Some regional jet operations, periodically bringing in executives from larger companies in our area, as well as waterfowl hunters this time of the year. They are kind of a kick in the pants, real great people, just as normal as us, that come in and want to do their thing, including the pilots and their support staff. So next slide, please. Just another shot, another different jet, getting some fuel out there. These guys actually chose to fuel themselves. This was prior to Miss Anderson getting her truck. So,
Councilman Johnson had a question.
Okay. So some operations, each takeoff and each landing is an operation. Some numbers on some of our operations that we have out there from the airport through our motion info. And it was brought up earlier that these numbers this is only getting information from aircraft that have the ADSB or the transponders on board. So some of the smaller stuff, some of the powered parachutes and that type of thing that are using the airport aren't showing up on these numbers. But even these numbers here, it's quite a bit. For some training opportunities from Chico. Chico likes our airport because it's untowered. They'll come down and do their takeoffs, landings, and different stuff and circle around quite a bit. Generally a couple of days a week. Next slide, please. So some ground lease options and interest. Butte County Mosquito and Vector Control District has expressed interest in expansion out to the south. We'll be talking with them to see how far out they may want to expand and what they want to do out there. There's regained interest in the old air filtration building on 250 Airport Parkway, which may augment into future helicopter training options from the company that was expressing interest. We'd met with them before last year. They had significant interest, kind of fizzled out, and then they reached out to me again recently to get some more information and get in touch with the owner of that building. So that could be something to turn into a big deal. Also very recent interest in a new ground lease for a 6,000 to 10,000 foot hangar for an expansion of business from out of town with manufacturing job creation related to aviation. And they currently have their products on about 11,000 helicopters worldwide. So this could really turn into something, being that it's helicopter related, to tie in nicely with what she has going out there, the helicopter operations, maintenance, overhaul. So if we can kind of gauge more towards helicopter stuff, that there's a lot of money wrapped up into those operations versus some of the others. And then again, as part of the layout plan update, I'll be talking with our engineering consultant for the feasibility of putting in some charging stations for EV toll aircraft, which is electric vertical takeoff and landing. Those are taking off, LOL, down in the Southern California. They're basically air taxis. So they can take people from point A to point B via air. If you look into it, Joby Aviation is one of them, if you guys want to do a little bit of research on it, but it's kind of a big deal. Kind of like the electric cars. It sounds like those things are kind of going by the wayside, but it's California. It's just a matter of time. If we have these things, hey, we got to get from Redding to wherever, where batteries getting low, we can go to Oroville. If we can put in a couple of charging stations for a reasonable price, I think it's something we might want to look into. So moving to the next slide, and I'm almost done babbling. Immediate and future, we're looking into some hangar bay roof resealing for the main FBO. We've got a few leaks developing out there that creates a significant issue for their operations with very expensive components out there. We don't want those things getting wet. Bring some information to you guys now that she has her truck out there to auction or sell our old fuel truck that's owned by the city. We touched on the card reader kiosk coming up very soon, and then we touched on fiber optic as well. So that's kind of some things that are on the horizon in our sites that we're looking to
Thank you.
move forward on. Next.
Any questions?
Yep.
At this
Questions?
point, we'll go right into Jen's presentation. Go
I
ahead.
just want to hear from me. not
Yeah,
you.
I know. Hey, just
you got pictures.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you.
step aside.
Okay. Next slide. Yay, helicopters. So anyways, this is the inside of the hangar right now. Oh, minus the yellow one. The yellow one's not in there. We finished that one. But obviously I do work on helicopters, so there will be helicopters in the hangar most of the time. And that's just some of the maintenance stuff that we do. We do 100 hours in overhauls, and basically anything that a helicopter needs is what I specialize in. We do still work on airplanes and everything, but I more or less specialize in the helicopters, which is a good thing because there are very few helicopter maintenance facilities in the North State. There's only about 3 that I know of between Reading, us, and down in Woodland. So it helps to have, I think that's one of the nice things about, or one of the things that we talked about trying to do is do more niche-y type things, you know, get things at Oroville that other airports don't have. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing that helps us generate more people coming here, is having things that aren't available at every other airport. Because if we don't stand out, like, they could go anywhere. So anyways, this is just a picture of inside the hell thing. And I did buy a fuel truck because we did not have one. And luckily for me, because I am such a small company, I was able to buy a fuel truck that did not have to abide by the CARB compliance California laws. So it was a lot cheaper than it would have been for you guys to purchase one to have out there. So since we've had it, it's going to take a little bit more time. You know, we just got it, but it has been selling fuel out of it. But I'm hoping once the word gets out and, you know, everybody knows that we have a working fueling truck that has not only the single point, but it also can do over the wing. And I also have the ability to do the PRIST injection, which is what the bigger planes use. It helps, it's a anti-icing agent that they add to the fuel. It's a fuel additive. So, yeah, basically I guess the city-owned truck, it would have caused our fuel score to go down like significantly to where it wouldn't look good. So they decided to take it out of service. But now that we have one, we have been selling fuel to jets, and I do a lot with the duck clubs and stuff. They're the ones that bring the people in this time of year. There's not a whole lot of people traveling this time of year, but they love it. They love this weather. I hate it, but they love it. So, next. Oh, more on the fuel, just so you guys can see a better picture of it. The 2 on the left for the overwing operations. The one on the right is the single point. It's a pressurized fuel system that they use on the big planes. They can do the over the wing, but unfortunately the way that they're integrated fuel systems, so they're actually built into the wings and whatnot. So without having a pressurized system to actually push the fuel in, you can only fill it up to a certain amount with the over the wing. So that's why they require the pressurized system. So this opens up a lot of doors for us as far as selling fuel. And not only I make a little bit of money off the fuel sales, but you guys make money off the fuel sales. So more money for you, more money for me, more fuel sales, yay. But yeah, this is a picture of just one of the first fuel sales that we did with the truck. They bought 1,500 gallons of fuel in one sitting, so delightful. We can get a few more of those in every couple weeks. That would be even better.
But Jennifer, I think important point to add here is that we've had a self-service fuel facility forever.
Yeah.
But these planes like this one here and the helicopters don't do self-service. They have to be delivered.
These
by
ones
you.
have to, I mean, they don't have to, like, it's not because we can't do 121 operations at our facility. We can only do 135 operations, which is different parts of,
Sure.
Aviation operations. They can, it's just they prefer not to. And again, the single point eliminates a lot of contamination issues, with having the fuel thing open
Right,
up top. And I mean, that's probably $25 million airplane.
Sure.
I wouldn't want to spill fuel all over the wing either.
Right.
So, but they do, they can do it, but they much prefer to get fuel this way. So it's been good so far.
Well, a lot of the pilots that are professional pilots, they don't,
Well, there's that too. They don't really know how.
yeah.
That's not in their job description, so they
Right.
don't do it. They're like, I'm not allowed to
Yeah,
fuel the
they're only
airplane.
gonna come to a facility that has a truck to
Yes,
deliver.
they want full service. Like,
Right.
that's ideally, that's what they want.
Yeah.
You know, they're spending the money on everything else. They don't want to get their hands
Good
dirty. And
point.
half of the pilots aren't allowed to do it. It is like, you know, not allowed for them to do their
Yeah,
own
and I'll
fuel.
cut to the chase. Most pilots that if you can afford that airplane,
You don't want to.
you don't want to pump your
Yeah,
own fuel.
no, nobody wants to do it.
But
Exactly.
You know,
Don't have overalls and gloves and.
Yeah,
put it
throw on
their
your
st-
coveralls in
there
the back.
are some unique individuals who enjoy doing that.
Yeah,
There are
okay.
very few
Yeah.
that fly that type of equipment.
You know what's crazy is the guys in that airplane, that specific airplane, they were the coolest. Like, the guy got out, he had jeans on and just, they were from North Carolina and he was telling us all these stories about flying. I mean, they were just good old boys. Like, it was actually quite entertaining to have them there. But they were like, oh, if you need help or if you need anything, just let us know. You know, they were awesome. I really enjoy the duck hunters that come out they're nice people. So, so we can go to the next one. So, flight instruction. Now, I do have a flight instructor. Unfortunately, I don't own a plane yet, but, you know, 172s are anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 for a decent one that you would use for flight instruction. I hope that after a few years of being here, the revenue is good enough that I have that kind of money and I can buy an airplane, and we can get into actually having a rental plane and whatnot for flight instruction. As of right now, I just have a flight instructor available. And she has done quite a few biennials, biennials. And about 100 hours of flight instruction there in the ground school inside the FBO. So she does use the facility, and she is available, especially for people who have their own aircraft. So I am looking into trying to expand on that, but yeah, everything's expensive right now, and the insurance is ridiculous for
Is
flight
that
instruction.
your instructor? Is that CFI, CFII?
She's a double A
Double
and
A.
an MEI. She's
Excellent.
everything. Yeah, she's
Excellent.
got everything. So she can do multi-engine, she can do all of it. So she is actually in the process of getting a job right now with PlaneSense, which is a big PC-12 operator. But even when she has her job, she's 7 days on, 7 days off. So she
So
still
she'll
is
still be able
available
to.
2 weeks out of the month. So
That gives a lot of flexibility for people that want to learn not just your basic, private pilot's license, but multi-engine instrument training.
yes, no, it opens a lot of doors. But that's the other thing too. When we get into the instruction, if I was to buy an airplane, I mean, you know, because you fly, but I mean, you go into getting an instrument proficient airplane, that's going to cost you upwards of $300,000. Like, and if all I buy is a little Cessna 150, the only thing that we can offer out there is private, primary and private. So the further you get and the more ratings that that you offer out to all these people, the more money it's going to cost to have these planes. I mean, a twin engine airplane that's even more expensive. So it's not something that is ruled out. It's just it's not happening right in the immediate future. That is a future goal. So.
Cool.
All right, so next one is maintenance activities. Not that you guys need to read this, I can just tell you, but, so as of this year, I've done 5 annuals on airplanes. Like I said, I do work on airplanes. I specialize in helicopters, but I do work on airplanes. So we are doing annuals out there, and it's mostly for the folks that are already stationed out there, that already have hangars and everything out there. So they're very happy to have somebody on the airport that's doing that rather than having to take their aircraft somewhere else. We do any kind of, oil changes, any kind of magneto issue, for example, they had a guy, actually, and you know him. Yeah, you know him. One of the guys came out on his check ride, and they landed at the airport and got a flat tire in the middle of his private pilot check ride. And luckily we were there, so went over there, pulled him off the runway, and went and got a tube, changed his tire, got him out of there. He ended up finishing and passing his check ride, so he did get his license. So simple things like that. We've had another guy had a little more of a bang up that. Nothing bad, but he did hit the props, so that was something above my pay grade. So unfortunately, they came and picked that airplane up and took it out. But we are definitely doing quite a bit of maintenance out there. There's no shortage of maintenance needs at that airport. And the helicopters, I kind of touched on that in the beginning. I do everything, but a large part. One of the things that me specifically that I specialize in is the depot level. So I overhaul components like transmissions and rotor heads and gearboxes. So it's a very specialized thing, what I do. So, and as far as I know, there's only 2 of us in California that work on this specific type of stuff that I work on. So there's a place in Redding that does it, and then I do it, and then I think the next closest place is in Arizona. I mean, there aren't a ton of Hueys out there in the world anymore, but that is what I work on, so.
All right.
Yeah. Da, da, da. Next page, what do we got? So this is a picture of what I do. I don't know if it's very involved. I mean, we completely disassemble things down to every nut and screw, and they get sent off and NDT checked. And then we bring them back, we repaint everything, reassemble everything. It is a very, very involved, it's very involved. So that right there is actually a rotor head from a Huey. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. It's very time consuming.
Short question, for your
Yeah.
maintenance facilities, do you envision the possibility of having a bigger hangar for that?
Oh, I would love a bigger hangar. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately with that hangar right there, I mean, you can get a few of those small helicopters, but like what I work on specifically, the Hueys, you can't fit one in there. I can't even fit one in the big hangar that I have over on the other side.
Right.
I mean, they're 13 feet 9 inches on the ground.
One of the things I discovered in visiting airports is having a large enough hangar to put everything, like the gal in Chico.
Yeah, Alicia.
Alicia, there.
Yeah, they have a huge hangar.
The
I went
huge
in there,
hangar
it is crazy how
becomes a
much they
big
have.
draw for the airport to be able to put everything inside and work
Right.
on it.
No, it would definitely be ideal, and I mean, as long as everything continues to progress forward and up like we have been, you know, I would love to see something like that in the future, because I would love to continue doing stuff out there and working on the helicopters. I mean, what I do, I can do anywhere. I don't have to do it at, you know, because
Sure.
it's depot level, so it's already been removed from the aircraft and they bring it to me and I overhaul it. Now, this kind of stuff that you're seeing in this picture, you know, we're taking the engine out of this aircraft and sending the engine out. I mean, we do maintenance stuff as well in there. But we are limited to the size of aircraft. I mean, you don't want to leave an aircraft that's torn apart like that outside on a day like
Right,
this.
right,
So that's, and helicopters are so expensive. The money that is invested in those things and just the amount of money that the parts cost, you know, you don't want the elements to get to them if you can
Gotcha.
help it. So, I mean, obviously future thing, I'm sure we all have great aspirations for the future of the airport, so, but a larger FBO hangar would definitely be amazing. And then community involvement on the next one. So I don't do it a ton just because I know people have asked, this has come up more than once. I'm sure this is a question I was gonna get asked at some point, why I don't have the doors open. So I will go ahead and tell you why I don't have the doors open. One, it's a safety concern with people being in there, and 2, there are environmental restrictions and requirements with the overhaul process in different stages that I am in. Like I mean, technically, I should actually have like plastic around things, like almost like a paint booth, like a clean room. There are certain stages of what I do that's required. So having the doors open and having the elements, you know, being able to just freely go through there is not, it's
Not
not,
a good idea.
it's not allowed, you know, so you want to keep things as clean as you can when you tear them down that far. So that's a huge thing. But again, the safety concern, you see how low that helicopter is. Like if somebody walked in there and hit their head, I mean, we've all probably dealt with this in the city. If you don't have a curb marked red, or if you don't have something painted the right way and somebody trips and falls, and oh my goodness, and liability and getting sued. So for me, having them in the actual shop where we work is not ideal. I mean, if it's arranged, like this was arranged, you know, somebody asked if they could bring their daughter out and show them around and everything. If it's arranged and we can do it, then by all means. But if I leave the doors open, unfortunately, it is like an invitation for the people out there to just walk in and be like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, where did you come from? So that's the only reason. And then the front door, I know we've touched on the crime issue, and I guess I don't want to say crime, that sounds harsh, but you know, the few things that have happened out at the airport. When Cody's there, when Jerry's there, when somebody else is there with me, you know, no big deal, we'll have everything opened up. But when it's just me there, I do lock the front door. I keep the front door locked. My phone number is posted on the front door for anybody who needs anything, and all they got to do is call me and I can walk to the front door and unlock it. But if I am in the back, I can't keep an eye on the front. And I mean, somebody could walk in there and take every single thing out of that FBO, and I wouldn't have a clue because I've got my radio on in the back working. So unfortunately, when it is just me there, I do have the doors locked, but it is more of a security thing than me just being antisocial. So.
Gotcha.
And then community involvement. So for the future, the Sutter Butte 99s, which is a women's flying club. They do little, I don't want to call them conventions, it's not so much a convention, but like little gatherings every year. And they had asked us if, they could host one of those next year at the FBO. And I said, of course. So that's something that's in the works for 2024. Cody's on the school board for a couple elementary schools. So we're actually going to talk to them about doing like some field trips with the smaller kids, bring them out and show them everything out there. And possibly I can bring over like some of the ag cats and the helicopters from my dad's work and where I fly for ag and stuff. And just get a few things over here and show them that stuff, show them all the maintenance stuff that I do, working on the helicopters, and bring some of the planes out that are in different stages of being worked on, not just like full planes, but show some that have like their, the engines out and just different things like that. And then we are planning on having another fly-in this spring. The last one was great. Pee-wee's was awesome in the summertime. I think the fly-ins are good. The only thing that I did notice, and this was my inexperience, but now I know, they are great to get people there, but they are not revenue-generating events in any way, shape, or form. Most of the people that did come there are from local airports. They came there, they went and walked around like a car show, they saw everything, it was great, they asked a bunch of questions, it was neat. And then they leave. I mean, even I think at Pee-wee's, I think there's only like a handful of planes, and there was a lot of planes at his that got fuel. There was no income necessarily generated for any of the parties. Like, yes, it was cool to have everybody out there, but, as far as generating, I guess, interest in the airport, I mean, most of the people around here know that it exists, and I guess maybe having the fuel truck and having a few of the things that are now available, like the maintenance and having the FBO open and all that stuff, now they're aware of those things, and so... Right. But for me personally, I think just having, one a year, I don't want it to be something that everybody, if you have one every other weekend, you're probably not going to get as much attendance as like the fair once a year. The fair only comes around once a year for a reason. You get really excited, you go have your corn dog, but if you could have one every day, it wouldn't be that awesome anymore. So, but yes, I'm going to do another one this spring, and then, if Pee-wee wants to do his again, and if we ever have any other places like the 99s or something, they want to do something, I think that'd be awesome to have those out there, so.
Very good.
And then also, I do have my father's, he's got a call when needed helicopter. We have a firefighting business, and so they stage out there, so that thing's out there all summer as well. Da-da-da. What else do we have? So this is just like the flyer and a couple pictures from like the fly-in last year. That's our Huey, and then my dad's. The green one we use for like frost control. It's pretty much just pretty. We haven't really used it for work or anything yet. And then he's got his little Jeep, and that's actually Paul's got a little mini Mustang over there. There was actually quite a few really cool airplanes that came out. And then the next one, oh gosh, my dad got to go in his first gyrocopter ride at the fly-in. He flies helicopters and airplanes, but he's never flown one of those, so he got to go for a ride in that thing. That was kind of neat. Those were actually really neat. There was a whole herd of them that came in. And then the next slide, so that's the sky crane that came in the one day, and they landed, it was kind of a weird thing, they landed over on the other side, and I was like, why is he here? I'm like, is there fire? I got all excited. I'm like, I'm gonna go talk to this guy. So I drive over there and see what he's doing. He said, oh, you got a fuel truck? I was like, I don't. I was like, I don't have one yet. I was like, is that what you need? He's like, yeah. He's like, well, do you have a long hose? I'm like, I do. I got a really long hose. He's like, fantastic. He's like, well, we'll taxi over there. So we get over there, and he's like, oh, you don't have single point? I'm like, I don't. He's like, do you have a tall ladder? I'm like, I do. So it was quite a long process, but anyways, we helped them out, and that's a picture of them actually fueling that thing from the top. They said they'd only done it 2 other times ever, but they, our prices were so much cheaper than Chico. They really, really wanted to get fuel there.
that's
They
good.
did not want to go up north and get fuel in Chico. So luckily I was there, and we were able to get them their fuel, and then that was just probably the
They
coolest
eat
airplane
fuel
I've
like
ever seen.
crazy,
Oh,
too.
956 gallons, and they flew from like Stockton.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so expensive. But yeah, the plane on the right was just some, what is that thing? A Helios Stallion. There's only like 3 of them in the world still flying. It was built in World War II or Vietnam, one of those 2. Can't remember, but super, super cool airplane. So anyways, next slide. So challenges, some of the things that we have, I think the biggest issue that we're having out at the airport, or just in general, is just the price of everything right now. It's insanely expensive. Fuel prices are awful. You know, the price, I mean, my airplane, I bought a little airplane last year for $22,000. It's worth like 65 now. Like, everything is going up so exponentially. A lot of what we have at Oroville Airport is general aviation, and general aviation is hobbyists. That's what they are. They're not doing this for a living. They're not making money. It's something that they do for their enjoyment, and it's just discretionary income, which unfortunately is lacking at this particular point in most people's lives. So it's not stopping people from flying. It's more or less slowed things down. It's just something that I'm hoping turns around at some point and we can get a little bit more. But even for the flight instruction, we were talking about that. It costs, it's $200 plus an hour to rent an airplane. And then the instructor, I mean, it's almost $300 an hour for 1 hour in an airplane for flight instruction. Not a lot of people, it's not that people don't have the interest in it, it's that people don't have the means to do it. So I'm hoping that things turn around in the next year or so. However the economy goes, really hoping for good things. But, we're still going. I mean, there's still a need and there's still a want for aviation and all the things that we have out there. I am hoping that the economic stress gets alleviated at some point in the semi-near future so that we can see an increase in people doing things for
Question
fun.
of Councilman Johnstone.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I really appreciate your presentation. So I would agree with you on this last slide about the economic uncertainty. My question is, and I think maybe Cody had talked about there was one commercial entity coming in related to airplane parts or something like that. But I personally envision Oroville, I mean, we have so much land around here for commercial application. What about what kind of interest can we garner as far as special surgeons and doctors coming into the new airport? I mean, you know way more about the airport than I do, but I would really like to see, I mean, I know with the hospital, there's going to be private, surgeons coming in, nurses, specialty doctors coming in. What can we do? Can we have get a vehicle out there that they can use, to fly in?
Be one of my biggest things would be, because we'd actually touched on even getting a hold of like the casinos and stuff, when they have their comedians come in or their performers or whatever. I know a lot of them travel by bus because they have equipment and stuff, but when you have the people that don't, like maybe reach out to them and see if they would be willing to have their people fly into us. But it is the transportation from the airport to wherever it is that they're going we don't have anything. There's
Right.
nothing really available, and as far as Uber or Lyft or any of those things, it's few and far between out here.
Sure.
It's not a reliable source of transportation, so that's something that, yes, we either need to look into getting some sort of a club car or van or something out there that people have access to for that kind of stuff, or have just I know there's taxi companies and stuff out here, but we just need a more reliable source of transportation from the airport. Because people come to the airport all they want, and then they're just there.
Right, and then they have to sit in the FBO, right?
Yes, and we've talked, even Cody and I, talked about maybe trying to do something with Hertz or with Enterprise or any of those people, but half the time Enterprise, they're supposed to bring
Don't
a car
have
out there
vehicles.
to you, and it's never
Yeah.
there, or they lock the keys in
the
it,
same
or
way
they
when-
don't leave the keys.
Yeah.
One time they didn't even leave the keys for the car that they brought for somebody. So there's a few things. And Cody, go.
No, I'm just going to touch on your question. There are, I would say, numerous occasions when doctors do come in out there and they're picked up by personnel from the hospital. They have to use a butte taxi or something like that to get down there, transplant organs. People that come in, we have reach helicopters come in there. They'll do a patient transfer and blow out. I've provided gate cards to EMS, obviously, our ambulance people locally, as well as Gridley have cards. They have direct access onto the ramp for ambulances. So those things do happen. We actually do have, I don't think it's for the purpose, a medical purpose, but we do have a doctor, local doctor that has a couple of hangars out there right now. So these things do happen right now. And then, as far as do anything in the future to garner their interest, It would almost be more on a private side as far as those larger hangars we talked about, if they have bigger
Yeah.
aircraft, that they want to store out there. But otherwise, the things that you mentioned a second ago do happen out there on a semi-regular basis.
Well, I'm hoping it happens more with the new hospital. What about commercial? I know we have such a small airport that we probably can't bring in, like commercial jets or anything like that. But like, I'm envisioning like warehouses, like, bringing in an Amazon or bringing, Chewy.com or, something like that, where we could have actual planes flying in to distribute merchandise for hangars. I don't know, those kinds of things. So do we have a land space for those?
We have land space for that, and that'll be touched on in the airport layout plan update.
Okay.
The issue that we would likely run into with that is that our airport is only capable of, I believe it's a B2 aircraft.
Smaller
So
crafts.
wingspans shorter. Matter of fact, I'm in the process of justifying what we have right now. As far as runway width, the FAA is only willing to send enough money through grants for certain size aircraft if you have enough operations of these larger aircraft.
Okay.
B2 is a wingspan of 49 feet and greater. We're constrained for anything larger. We can land them, they can take off, but legally with After Bay Drive, it's in the way. The runway safety zone is too great for that road to even exist there for anything larger than what I was just talking about. So the land is there, how it's used, how it's planned is the most critical component of doing something like that.
But we do have the longest runway in Butte County, which is the interesting thing. It's longer than Chico's. It's just issues about putting together.
Right,
And then the city does own all the property to the After Bay, so just that one roadway's kind of in the way.
Just that road.
The roadway and the subdivision, I think it's Feather Ranch out off of 18th Street is in the way.
Yeah.
So we're kind of boxed in with those two components for sure. We can move the road.
Right.
We own the land past
Right.
the road. We can
Yeah.
zig it out and
Yeah.
zag it back, but the other things, out there, so it kind of limits
Vice
us.
Mayor Smith has a question.
Just a little advice. Welcome to my world on events. Yeah. You don't make money.
No.
Sponsorship, though. That's, corporate sponsorship.
Corporate
There's-
sponsorship.
Yeah, that's
okay.
how you can,
Okay. Well, I know
make
that
a
you
buck.
guys had talked about that Chico one. And so that Chico one was actually put on by the Air Museum for the Air Museum. It wasn't the city or the airport,
Right.
it was an Air Museum fundraiser.
Fundraiser.
So that's something to look at possibly in the future, is having some sort of attraction at the airport other than just me,
Yeah.
for people to come see.
Right.
So, that's, I don't know, I mean, I know I'm wonderful, but
Yeah.
I'm not the reason that people come there, so.
No.
Creativity,
I mean,
being creative.
That's something to discuss, like what, because you are so familiar, what can we do to bring other pilots into, come and visit Oroville?
Well, that is the thing. I mean, I think having more things available out there, if you do get more businesses out there, if these things go through with these helicopter companies or whatever it is that's out there. And I had even mentioned at one point, like, I know it had been talked about that a certain company wanted to do some of their longliner, their 133 operations training out there, which is helicopter longline work, like pole setting and utility work, and that's, to me, I think that's huge. And I am biased towards helicopters, I love them, but there's also a significant amount of money wrapped in helicopters. Like, if you get helicopters out there, anything, it's gonna be, there's money. And not only that, like, you can build a 20,000 square foot hangar and put 17 helicopters in it and get 2 big airplanes.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, obviously
Well
they're
said.
paying for the hangar, not the number of helicopters they
Right.
have in there, but it's just, it's a market that I think that we should possibly,
Right.
that we should look into, is trying to do.
Councilman
and if-
Weber's on
I'm
it,
still
too.
not there.
Oh, I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, yeah. So I do like your thinking, though, in the niche. I think that's being creative and thinking outside the box. That's great. But the business piece, so we're being asked to possibly approve something. So are you going to make that present, are we going to segue from this and then make that as a separate piece? Or can I go ahead and make my comments now?
That is correct. We're going to segue after they're
Okay,
complete.
very
yes.
good. And I'll reserve my comments. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilman Weber's next.
Thank you. I just wanted to make an observation that Pee Wee's flying. I think there was probably a couple thousand people out there and all the place. So he's actually moving his fly-in from July 4th to, I got it written down here, May 11th.
Perfect.
May 11th, because he wanted to bring it back to more of a cooler.
Yeah, I noticed
know.
that it scattered real fast when the sun came out. Like, it got hot real quick.
So he's going to do it after the Feather Fiesta Day parade and before Red Suspender Days over in Gridley. So
Then maybe what I'll do is instead of doing mine in like April like we did last year, I'll just push mine out to like more like September, or October, like the end of the summer. That way we can kind of have them spread out. And
yeah, collaborate with him. I think that might be a way too. Also, because as an FBO operator, and then along with what obviously Pee Wee could generate a large crowd.
Right.
And get a lot of attention. He knows that he's got an amazing amount of contacts, but I was thinking that perhaps that might be a way to really promote general aviation as well.
Yeah.
You know, the display days, fly-ins, you know, kind of have, you know, promote that as a Northern California kind of thing. If maybe we could get our airport to be a destination for that.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, they are great. Like I said, they are great. I'm hoping in the coming years, you know, once I get this stuff, you know, thank you guys for giving me a chance because I came into this fresh. I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm hoping I'm doing the right things. But, you know, as I get a little more settled and get things kind of ironed out, you know, I do plan on having an employee in there next year, you know, with the fuel truck and everything. Now I actually have a use for an employee. I have a way for them to make me money rather than just cost me money being a pretty face to see when they walk in the door for the 4 people that come in a month. So I do plan on doing all those things. So once I can, you know, spread out my workload a little bit more and get more help, then, yeah, we can try to do a lot more events and things like that and get, you know, like maybe set up once a month or once every other month, you know, a display day that people could, you know, people that have their own aircraft at the airport can bring them out to the ramp and people want to fly them in and look at them, like, you know, whether it's a big thing or not, it's something that we could do. You know, maybe not be a income generator, but an interest generator, I guess. So.
Well, I think too, it's not just bears upon us asking you to make the airport better. I think all of us in this room need to understand what's going on and then also help be, you know, the support effort and reaching out to anybody and everybody we know that might want to put something at the airport. I mean, I think that's the better thing going on. And by having this presentation, which interestingly to me, it's the first time I've seen a PowerPoint on the Oroville Airport in a lot of years. So thank you for that alone, just because it's informative and it helps get the word out to the public about the airport. Sometimes we forget about it. So I think all our suggestions and ideas that you have, you know, can work forward and we'll hopefully see not just yourselves making the solutions, but other people in the community to do that. So I think it's a great part of the presentation. I certainly appreciate it. And I know the council appreciates the information. Yeah.
Okay, next part. Are we going to the next thing? Any other questions?
I think we've got the questions answered. The next part is are you or Fred's making that? Fred?
Sure, I can do it.
Okay.
I'd also like to mention too, about Jennifer and Cody too, is that I feel they've done quite a bit in the short amount of time they were there and have been there. She came over full stream as a FBO in April, and Cody's been fully promoted over to the manager right about September, and there's been a lot of change in movement going in the right direction in such a short time. And I just wanted that to be on the record and to be acknowledged as well.
Yeah.
So, so we have a First Amendment agreement. We'd like to do some changes, and I can read through the language if you guys like. So section 3.03 shall be replaced with the following language. Rental of the hangar buildings, the lessor agrees to pay the lessee a monthly stipend totaling the monthly rent for G&H hangars for the first year. Genco aviation profit and loss will be reviewed annually, and the monthly stipend will remain the same or increased as necessary, depending on how the profits are not happening over the year. Section 3.07 shall be replaced with the language, utilities, the lessor shall pay 100% of the electric, gas, garbage, and other utility services. Section 5.13 shall be replaced for the following language, fixed base operator service to the public. Lessee may provide aviation services to the public, including minor, major, service, and mechanical work on aircraft, flight instruction, training, student aircraft rentals, scenic tours, aviation accessory sales, vending machines, sales, and radio, electronic, or other avionic equipment sales or car rentals, shuttle or hotel reservations, and air show flying. There's a lot. This is a long one. So let it show and exhibit a lessee shall sell Jet A fuel on the behalf of the city using the lessee's fueling truck. The lessor shall pay the lessee a stipend of $650 a month for the lessee's fuel truck, as well as pay for the fuel truck's replacement. I think we're going to rearrange that a little bit. The truck's replacement of fuel filters and hoses as required. In addition, the lessee will receive a fuel flowage fee of 50% of the net profit per gallon of the Jet A fuel sold through the full-service Jet A truck. Those are the major changes. Jennifer, she got her fuel.
I was going to say, if I may, two of them the first two were really clean up. The third one was the more significant one with the city. The prior language stated that the city would provide a fuel truck. The fuel truck we were providing was inadequate. So with that, we recommend some compensation going to help offset those costs. And I know we've spoken with Vice Mayor Smith, and I'm not sure if you want, about maybe increasing, instead of having language in there that states, along with the replacement of the hoses and filters, figure out what that cost is and bake that into that monthly stipend as well, so it's just all included as one. Not to speak for you, Vice Mayor, but I wanted to throw that out there.
Councilman, you're done?
I'm done.
Okay, Vice Mayor Smith is on cue.
Just to clarify what they're speaking to, so that stipend request is $650. And by the way, I'm fully committed to your success, because your success is a city's success. And so that's important. Although just from housekeeping standpoint of contracts and agreements, I think it's always important to keep the private sector on the private sector and not to blend private and public. And so what I had talked to the staff about was rather than us paying a bill for your fuel truck for annual maintenance, to just simply roll those costs. So if you just take a basic math, it's $41.66 a month, or just round it up to $42. So the stipend would be $692. So I would recommend that the stipend would be $692 monthly, which is just simple math. And then whenever she needs to take and have that equipment serviced, it belongs to you, and you take care of it, and you pay the bills, and then we just, of course, contractually pay that stipend on a monthly basis. I think that's just cleaner. And for me, just again, thinking in terms of that private-public relationship. And then the other piece that I have, which I feel like there's some language missing, and maybe the attorney can clarify this. So when it comes to the let me get this, because I want to speak to it correctly here. The annual P&Ls, and to review that P&L so then make sure that you're being profitable. But it's kind of ambiguous. I don't know, what does that look like? Are we deciding what her profit margin is supposed to be, and then how, and those adjustments, because there's a lot of information there. It's very ambiguous. And then is that a calendar year? So then should we expect a P&L report February of 25? There's just a lot of pieces in there to where it feels a little bit ambiguous. So, what are those profit margins, or what are they supposed to look like? Do we get into the weeds that deep? What's that look like? Help me out here with that.
To be candid, what it is intended to do is, in the event, this is really sort of, I'll use the term sort of one-sided, in the event that Genco Aviation is losing money on the fuel truck and on the fuel sales, at a minimum, that should be breaking even.
Sure.
Right?
I would agree.
So in the event that she's losing money on it, then she can come and say, look, here are my numbers. I'm losing money on it. Can we adjust the stipend to cover that? If she's, and I'm going to use an extreme example that I hope to heaven comes true someday, if she is using that fuel truck 4 or 5 times a day, loading up jets just one after another, she's not going to come asking for more money, because there will be plenty of money coming from the sales We split the profit margin on the sales, or we divide it somehow. Yeah, so if that's the case, you get some of those, thirsty jet engines, jet airplanes that show up. You get one of those a day, and you're making great money.
So to borrow from Councilwoman Goodson, so when one airplane floats, they all float. So we would.
When one.
So if you're making bank, then
we
yeah,
hope they
will
don't.
too.
We hope they don't float. We want them to fly. But
Right.
No, they. But yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Sure.
It's sort of intended so that in the event that there is the discussions that we had were really about, we don't want her to feel squeezed on the fuel component. So in the event that the fuel truck, we sort of just took the cost of the fuel truck and amortized it over a period of time, and then took some maintenance and rolled that into it and thought, okay, well, here's roughly the cost. Well, if it costs more than that, or if there's some issue, then she'll come and talk to us. And if there's not, then she won't.
So this is applying to the fuel cells predominantly.
It's predominantly the fuel truck.
Okay, or the fuel truck, but the cost related to fuel cells.
Yeah.
Essentially on
Well,
her.
No. So what happened was this was the provision where the city was supposed to provide a fuel truck. We took that out
Right.
and said, we're going to give you this stipend every month because she bought the truck.
Right, but what I'm talking about is as it applies to the P&L and the review of that P&L to be adjusted
I got you.
accordingly.
Yes.
That applies predominantly to that portion of her business.
Yes.
And that's not clear in this, the way it's written.
Yeah,
if I had
I-
understood that, I probably wouldn't have asked the question.
I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is related to fuel sales,
Okay.
the P&L.
I don't know if we should need to have that related to fuel cells in there or not, but that's
we
legal
can add,
counsel.
We can add in the profit and loss related to fuel sales will be reviewed annually. That's fine.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, and then I
I
wouldn't
mean,
have
look,
asked.
if we're making the other change that you mentioned about the
The stipend.
the stipend,
Yeah,
if we're going to change the stipend,
692 would
it's just as
make it
easy,
whole.
to just move the cursor up a few lines. We don't have to retype the whole page. I can just move the cursor up and make some
Yeah.
adjustments. I can add that in if
Sure.
that would
Yeah.
make it
All right,
more
thank you.
Sounds
clear.
good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Entertain a motion. Oh, excuse me, do we have any public cards on this?
We do not.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion.
So I'd like to make a motion that we accept a modified contract between the City of Oroville and Genco Aviation with a stipulation that we make an adjustment to the stipend to $692 a month, and also with a language update to include fuel cells as discussed.
I second that.
Jen, is that,
Seconded.
are you okay with that?
I'm good, yeah.
It's item identified as agreement number 3485. I call the roll.
Councilmember Johnstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Riggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson? Yes. Councilmember Goodson?
Yes.
Councilmember Weber?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pittman?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for the presentation and your
you very
time
much.
tonight.
Thank you.
All right.
Do you anticipate any questions on the next item that you had mentioned, the last thing we were talking about a minute ago that was going to segue into something?
That was it.
Oh,
The contract.
Yeah, no,
That was the segue.
Yeah, that was the segue.
We're
yeah. We're done.
Okay, thank you guys.
Yeah, got it.
Dropping stuff.
All right.
You all right?
Next item is actually the public hearing that we were to do at 5:30, but it's now past 5:30, obviously. It's item number 10, public hearing continued from the December 5th, 2023 Feather River Recreation and Park District Nexus Fee Study and proposed fee increase.
Yes.
Public hearing is announced, and we're open for any public comment.
We've received no public comment.
No public comment received. Any from the audience at all? Seeing none. Did you want to explain?
Sure, yes, if I may. After the input that was received at the December 5th meeting, I've reached out and had a number of conversations with Feather River Rec and Park District, their interim general manager, and as well as one of their board of director members. And the plan right now is they are going through an organizational change, as I mentioned earlier this evening. They're going to get a new GM on board. We're going to have discussions with regards to how the the fee structure looks like comparatively with other jurisdictions within Butte County, as well as have discussions on how the synergy, how the parks fees for Feather River Rec and Park District, how those fees relate to our own fees that the city charges, to make sure there's not any redundancy, and just have additional conversations before this comes back. So we propose to table this and continue it to the March 19th, 2024 meeting.
All right.
For the same time?
Yep.
5:30?
Okay, seeing no more public comment or input, I will close the public hearing. And next item is public communication, hearing of non-agenda items. Anyone here to do a non-agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move forward to future agenda items and correspondence.
Mr. Mayor, do we need a motion to continue it, or
No,
we're good?
just-
Okay.
no.
Just
Thank you.
continued. Yep.
Just the announcement, and
Got it.
again, if there are any objections, then we would have to
Yeah.
do it by motion, but there are none, so.
Got it. Thank you.
So does council members have any future agenda items? I know you might mention one in the pool.
Yeah, I would like to.
Okay.
Get this thing, okay. Yeah, I would like to discuss the proposal, how we could go about getting that pool operational, as the Y already expressed their interest in operating it. So I think it would be very advantageous for us to have another pool in the city, the Nelson Avenue Complex and that one. And quite frankly, I think we should have another one too in Southside, so.
Yeah.
But, so I'd like that. And then I have some council comments, but do you want me to do that now or go through future?
Well, just, anyone else, future agenda items? I know there's one that Councilman Goodson's brought up, the idea of the council compensation, one as a topic, and then two, how it we've done, and then three is what are the comparables to other cities and jurisdictions? So we could look at that in a January meeting sometime, whenever that comes forward. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. So,
There was one actual,
We did get a speaker card on this item.
Oh, okay, I'm
actually.
sorry.
Oh, okay,
So,
wonderful.
Please, come
before we
forward.
move up forward.
Sorry.
Mr. Bill Spear.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, I am not discouraged, but I guess it's on the agenda on the next council meeting for the tree mitigation and tree ordinances. And it was about 4 years ago, I believe, when I came in to say that there were issues with it, and I haven't give up. And last year, we'd asked to have some input, and I have been cutting trees in Oroville since 1987. I've been a certified arborist since 1990. A lot of the clients, the customers in Oroville, I do their tree care procedures, and I think that I have a lot to contribute to it. I did get you guys to say yes, that have a meeting. I met with Wade, and I thought it was all worked out. He listened to what I had to say and said, yes, I agree with this, I agree with that, you got a good point there, and made adjustments. And then we had some staffing changes, and another years went by. And so I was at another meeting, and I heard that there was, the ordinance was done. I was like, excited. I thought that everything was gonna go forward, and then I look it over, and it's not fixed. It's not dealing with the issues that even Wade agreed that should be addressed and fixed. So I sent the email over and asked if it could go back to planning so I could go and talk to them. And they said the planning has discussed it twice, and that they were good with what they have come up with. So I'm asking you if you could send it back to planning, and I can go to the planning meeting to discuss it with them before we bring it to the council. Because I do have a lot of issues with it. The responsible managing parties of their trees, I believe, is the property owner that can do a proper job on deciding how to deal with their own issues. And I think it's a lot of overreach with the city. And again, I've been in the industry for a long time, and if I believe the planning commission can hear me out, I should have been following the minutes and looked for it coming up, but, you know, I thought it was all taken care of last year. But, so I would ask you if we could just kick it out a little farther so I can have some input and see if we can fix it for the people of Oroville to be able to take care of their tree issues and problems without burdensome bureaucracy slowing down them being able to feel safe in their own homes with their trees. Thank you.
Councilman Thompson.
Yeah, I agree with what Pastor Spears says, and I would like it to go back, and I definitely am not for overreach, especially when somebody's on somebody's property and trees and all that, so.
Do we want to bring it before the council and you have the presentation on the 2nd and then make the determination, or?
It'd be nice if some of that stuff, just for time's sake of council meetings, if some of that stuff was at least brought, you know, since he's already had the conversation, it doesn't sound like maybe with the change of staff, if that was carried over.
Yeah, see, and then, of course, I don't know any of the details that we're referring to, or if they were discussed at the planning commission and just not adopted by the planning commission. That's the difficult part, but.
Just to help for sake of time up here.
If we brought it to the council meeting, there would be an opportunity to discuss the issues, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, whether it's the planning
Okay.
commission or the council meeting, both places would consider. I haven't seen it either. I don't know what the issues are.
Yeah, typically they go before the planning commission first, and then the council only, you know, would get it after that, you know, after they've given some
Input or
consideration,
whatever, yeah.
input, and modification to it. But
When does the planning commission meet?
This Thursday?
Is it this Thursday?
Yep. We're meet-
It is this Thursday.
So it's actually typically the fourth
Monthly.
Thursday. It's typically the fourth Thursday of the month, but they did vote to move it a week early due to the holiday. So it's this
So could they
Thursday.
put that on this upcoming agenda?
We already published. We could, I'm not quite sure the special meeting parameters, but
I think so.
I'm not sure.
if it's not, if it hasn't been drafted yet,
Yeah.
it'd be really tough to get it on the agenda. I mean, if it was all done, ready to go, it could be put on the agenda pretty quickly and easily. But if it's not drafted, that'd be a tough lift to get it done and to get it on the agenda.
It would likely need to go to the January meeting.
We just hear it here?
Just gonna hear it here and we'll adjust it there.
Yeah, we could bring it forward here. When would be considered, when was it?
It was going to be brought forward on January 2nd, and again, that's
Okay.
when all the public input can be brought forward, and you can make recommendations at that point based upon seeing the document, hearing the input.
Sure.
I think it'd be,
Yeah, I haven't seen it, so I don't know. Okay.
And then give the recommendation to the planning commission.
or, again, I can't look in the crystal ball. What's going to happen?
Yeah. I think we just bring it here and then go from there.
Yeah.
Simple enough.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
So there's 3 different issues in 3 different courts.
Yeah.
Mike.
Like it not all put on
Mike.
one, so I would have 3 minutes. Once, and I could have 3 minutes
Well, once it runs to the council as an agenda item, you have more than 3 minutes, correct?
Well, it depends on
The issue.
typically, members of the public would not have more than 3 minutes.
Okay.
Each individual, unless they brought it, for example, if it was brought up as an appeal of a planning commission
Okay, right,
action,
gotcha.
then they would have more time. They would have, I think, 10 minutes, but.
10 minutes.
but
Or if council asked questions on the questions,
Council
Yeah.
members can certainly
for
ask
you
questions.
clarification.
go for
Yeah.
like an hour and 15 minutes.
Clarification
Well,
questions, yeah.
Could we, and I'm going to take my name off the queue because that's exactly what I was going to ask.
Okay.
Since he has been petitioning this council for so long, knowing that he's going to come with his suggestions, can we agree now to perhaps give him room to speak a little longer than the 3 minutes? Is that something we could do?
I think if you do it for one, you need to do it for all, but I'll look at the council.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. Again, you can certainly ask clarifying questions. I think if you want to give him time to speak, I think you mentioned the 3 different issues. If you separate them into subcategory A, B, and C, then you can legitimately split them into, okay, let's have comments on A, let's have comments on B, comments on
Comment
C.
period, yeah, we can do that.
That would be a legitimate way to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, he's agreed he only needs 3 minutes on each one of those subcategories. No, I'm just kidding.
Or if I may,
Councilman
I can
Thompson,
squeeze it.
if I may.
Or talk fast.
Pastor, is if you could just email the council. Because then when you speak, we'll already have reference to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sure. And then you're just kind of giving highlights for the sake of time, because sometimes we talk about topics for an extended amount of time, and if we just get information ahead of time, then it saves everybody.
Yep, I can do that.
Councilmember Thompson,
you.
just if I could elaborate on that a little bit, Mr. Spear, if you'd like to submit your comments directly to me, I'll make sure I disseminate them to everybody on the council.
All right,
So that
there you
way
go.
we have it also in the record.
Yeah, get it to her and she'll get it to all of us. That's a good idea.
You got a card?
I sure do. I'll grab it too.
Thank you.
All right, any other agenda items from council? Any correspondence to discuss? And we have a report in-house. I would move for adjournment of the meeting.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, we need to go back into closed session.
Oh, that's right, sorry.
Basically, yeah, we need to go back into closed session for item number, closed session agenda, item number, hang on a second, 4?
Yeah.
Given the
Yes.
item that relates to a personnel matter, members of the public, you're welcome to stay. There will not likely be any announcement out of closed session that's made, other than direction given, no action taken. But I don't want to prejudge that. You're
Yeah.
welcome to stay. You're welcome to hang out if
Yes.
you want.
You are.
We'll give you the whole seat, but you only need the edge, just the front of it.
You had a
so.
comment before we go?
I do.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, you guys know me, I like to take notes, I write everything down. I just wanted to say thank you to the council. I appreciate you all. I wanted to also recognize all the department heads for the amazing work you guys are doing in the city. And I'm honored to serve on this council with all of you. And I'm honored to work with all of you guys at the city, because it is vitally important that we all work together to see this city grow and thrive and flourish. And the direction that the city is going in, I think, is a really healthy direction. I got a bunch of notes here. I just wanted to say Merry Christmas to all of you guys. And then I also wanted to recognize arguably one of the most well-behaved little boys I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Good job. Malachi, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Young Malachi, you are an inspiration, because the way you sit there and just go through all this, that's pretty inspirational, young man. And you're a good boy, I could tell. I bet you make your mommy proud. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Cool deal. Cool. All right.